Chapter 1555. You're saying you defeated the darkened heroic spirit? In the living room, Mikoto, Rin Inosaka, and Livia came to ask about the battle last night. She was shocked when she heard what Wu Yin said. You really defeated it? Do I have to lie to you? Wu Yin shook his head. He took out a class card and showed it to Bajit. Look, I've already retrieved the class card. Bajit frowned when she saw the class card in Wu Yin's hand. Rin Inosaka and Livia had a weird expression on their faces. That's because the card that Wu Yin took out has a picture of a berserk warrior holding a greatsword in his hand. Needless to say, it was the Berserker class card. Rin Inbin, Livia, Ilya, and Mio were the witnesses to the recycling of this class card. Therefore, Rin Inosaka and Livia were sure that the class card in front of them wasn't the same as the darkened heroic spirit from last night. Of course, this was because Rin Dosaka and Livia had subconsciously assumed that the 8th card was different from the 7 cards that they had collected earlier. If they knew that the class card Wu Yin retrieved last night was the Archer class card, Rin Inosaka and Livia would be shocked as well. Berserker, huh? Bajit's frown loosened as she stared at the class card in Wu Yin's hand. She nodded. It really is the same as the monster from last night. Wu Yin, Chuju, Mikoto, Rin Inosaka, and Livia looked at each other when they heard what Bajit said. They nodded with a bitter smile. Although he knew in his heart that the darkened hero spirit from last night was not a berserker, he had to say it out loud. Bajit's words were also very convincing. That kind of monster was indeed extremely compatible with a berserker. Compared to the original berserker, it was even more fitting. Until now, many people still remember the scene of the archer breaking out of the virtual domain's mirror realm and arriving at the real domain's real world. That scene was deeply engraved in the hearts of many girls. It wasn't an exaggeration to call them berserkers. If Wu Yin didn't know that Gilgamesh was only an archer and didn't meet the requirements to become a berserker, he might have thought so too. After all, a berserker has the right to become a berserker. Only a berserker who went berserk in battle would be qualified. A heroic spirit that hasn't gone berserk in battle cannot become a berserker. While Wu Yin was speechless, Bajit opened her mouth and said something. In other words, all the class cards are in your hands, right? Hearing that, the atmosphere in the hall suddenly dropped to the freezing point. Only then did the girls remember. The battle maniac in front of them wasn't their companion. He was their competitor. At the same time, he came to Fuyuki City to get the class cards. He was sent by the Magic Association. Thinking up to this point, Hinajiku, Mikoto, Rin Inbin, and Ruvia started to look at Bajit with hostility. Their delicate bodies also tensed up, preparing to deal with Bajit's attack at any time. Don't think Bajit can't do it. As long as it doesn't violate the principle of not exposing magic in front of ordinary people, Bajit can do almost anything to complete the mission. Wu Yin is the only one with a calm smile on his face. He waved his hand. All 7 class cards appeared in his hand. As you can see, all the class cards are in my hands. Do you want to rob me? Bajit stared at Wu Yin with a sharp glint in her eyes. The girls standing behind Wu Yin were also shocked. Rin Inbin and Livia put gems on their fingers. Logically speaking, since they belong to the Magic Association, they should be helping Bajit. Unfortunately, not only did Bajit have nothing to do with the department that Rin Tozaka and Livia belonged to, but the higher-ups in the department even went against Zelrich in order to get a rank card. How could the 2 magician girls stand on Bajit's side? As for Chuju and Mikoto, although they were cautious, they weren't as serious as when they faced Bajit. As for the reason, it was extremely simple. Gue Chuju, level 80, Misaka Mikoto, level 82. The second part of the Demigod Path quest has been completed. The restriction bracelets on their wrists have been removed. Chuju and Mikoto have returned to rank 9. Bajit can no longer defeat Chuju and Mikoto. As for Wu Yin, there's no need to talk about him. Level 89, peak of rank 9. At this level, he won't be able to find a match in the entire world. He wasn't afraid of Bajit when he was level 75. Why should he hide his strength from her now? If it wasn't for the fact that Xiaohei might be targeted, Wu Yin wouldn't have taken out the Berserker card to trick Bajit. Of course, Bajit didn't know about this. She just stared at Wu Yin without saying a word. Her sharp eyes began to waver. The entire place was silent and depressing. After a long time, sigh. Bajit sighed and turned around. She walked towards the door. What's wrong? Wu Yin couldn't help but say something. Aren't you going to steal the cards? With my power, I won't be able to take those cards from you. Bajit stopped and glanced at Wu Yin. But I won't give up. If I can't do it openly, I'll do it in the dark. I hope you won't let your guard down. After that, Bajit walked out of the hall without looking back. Is it okay to let her go? His gaze was fixed on the entrance of the hall as he spoke in a deep voice. Bajit wasn't joking. With her personality, she might really do it in the dark. Aren't you worried that there's a threat lurking in the dark? I need a chance to worry about it. Wu Yan's expression became slightly helpless. He looked at Rin Inbin and hesitated for a moment. Then he said something that made Rin Inbin tremble. I came to Fuyuki City to get the 7 cards. Now that the cards have been collected, it's time for me to leave. Pa! As soon as he finished speaking, the sound of something falling on the floor could be heard from the direction of the entrance of the hall. Everyone looked at the source of the sound. At the entrance of the hall, Mei was standing there. A bag of fruits, which should have been in Mei Yu's hand, fell on the ground in front of her. Mei Yu didn't care about the fruit on the ground. She looked at Wu Yin with eyes that could break anyone's heart. Her face was full of disbelief, followed by deep sadness. Obviously, Mei Yu had heard everything that was said just now. Mei Yu. Wu Yin was shocked. Mei Yu took a step back. Her orange eyes were filled with tears, and they quickly fell to the ground. With a sad expression, she turned around and ran away without looking back. Wu Yin panicked when he saw this. This was the first time he saw a strong girl like Mei Yu cry. What are you doing? Livia panicked and shouted at Wu Yin. Hurry up and chase after her. What about me? Livia raised her voice. Don't you know what kind of position you have in that child's heart? Go after her. Go after her. Rin Inbin took a deep breath and turned around. He didn't look at Wu Yin. If you don't go after her, with that child's personality, she might not be able to open her heart for the rest of her life. Hearing that, Wu Yin finally reacted from the fact that Mei Yu was crying. He stood up. Chuju, Makoto, I'll leave this place to you. Chuju and Makoto knew that now is not the time to hesitate. They nodded and let Wu Yin calm down. Immediately, he chased after Mei Yu and rushed out of the hall. The only thing left in the hall was a heavier and more oppressive atmosphere than when Bajit was here. Chapter 1556. Bang! The entrance door was violently opened. The sound reverberated in the night air and gradually spread out. Inside the door, a petite figure rushed out, bringing along a trail of sparkling and translucent liquid, sprinkling down in the dark night. The petite girl ignored him and rushed to the side of the iron gate. She pulled open the iron gate and began to run in the quiet night street, as fast as she could. As for where the direction she was running towards, the petite girl had no idea at all. She just wanted to get away from the scene as fast as she could, the farther the better. Not long after the petite girl ran out of the street, another figure rushed out from the entrance door. He stood there and looked around. Then he saw the petite girl running to the other side of the street. Mei Yu. Wu Yin didn't use spatial magic. His speed was comparable to lightning, but Wu Yin didn't use this in human speed. Instead, he chased after her at a normal running speed. Mei Yu, who was running in front, seemed to have heard Wu Yan's voice. Her small heart trembled and her footsteps slowed. In fact, Mei Yu didn't want to stop at all. But for some reason, after hearing Wu Yan's voice, Mei Yu couldn't run anymore. She couldn't even move her feet. It was as if she was rooted to the ground and didn't move at all. Under such circumstances, Wu Yan easily caught up to her. He slowed down when he was about 5 meters away from her. Looking at the petite girl's slender back, he slowly walked over. The petite girl had her back facing Wu Yan as they walked on a dark street in the residential area. She left Wu Yan with her back. Wu Yan slowly approached. Then, a voice as soft as a mosquito sounded. Why? The voice was very low, but the sadness and sadness contained in it were clearly felt by Wu Yan. He couldn't help but stop. He gazed at the petite figure that had her back to him from the beginning. Wu Yin stopped 2 or 3 meters away. Deep helplessness appeared in his wine-red eyes. Maybe you misunderstood. Misunderstood? Mayou lowered her head but still didn't turn around. In other words, Brother Wu Yin doesn't really want to leave, right? Hearing this, Wu Yin was silent. He silently expressed the truth that Mayou didn't want to know. Why? Mayou's voice seemed to be squeezed out. It made one's heart ache. Why leave? Mayou. Wu Yan's mouth slightly opened. He shook his head. You know that I'm not from here? Isn't it good to stay here? Mayou sounded like she was sobbing. Her voice was hoarse. Brother Wu don't want to stay here at all? I've been in Fuyuki City for 2 months, but I don't think it's bad. In fact, I think it's pretty good. Wu Yin looked at Mayou's back and answered. So, if you ask me if I don't want to stay here at all, the answer is of course no. Then why do you want to leave? Wu Yin clearly saw something on Mayou's face. It was dripping. I don't want you to leave at all. Hearing this sentence, Wu Yin felt a trace of bitterness in his heart. As Livius said, he really didn't know that he already occupied such an important position in Mayou's heart. Mayou was originally a strong, steady, introverted, and inflexible little girl. In this world, to be able to shake her heart and make someone like her, who did not know how to express her feelings, shed tears, it was definitely an important event that was comparable to life. No, with Mayou's character, maybe, she wouldn't feel even the slightest bit of sadness when her own life faded away. The only thing that can make her sad is something more important than Mayou's life. At least, for Mayou, it must be so. This is also the reason why Wu Yin was so moved when he saw Mayou's tears. Not only because Wu Yin can't bear to see girls cry, but also because he knows Mayou. He knows that she's not the type to shed tears easily. In this case, one can imagine how big of an impact Wu Yan's departure is to Mayou. However, Wu Yin can't stay in only one dungeon world to live. At least not now. Listen to me, Mayou. After weighing the words in his heart, Wu Yin said softly, I said you misunderstood. Although I will leave, it doesn't mean I won't come back. It won't be long before we meet again, indeed. No matter how long Wu Yin leaves magical girl Ilia's world, as long as Wu Yan Summoner is not here, the time in this world will be frozen forever. For Mayou, if Wu Yin returns to this world, the separation will only last for a second. Even if he doesn't return to this world, Wu Yin can still summon Mayou and make her his summoner. In that case, the separation will also last for a second. However, for Mayou, it's not a matter of time. But Brother Wu Yin, you'll still leave, won't you? Mayou's voice was filled with emotions like never before. She expressed her inner emotions and increased her volume so that her voice could enter Wu Yan's ears. You said you'll be my support. You said you'll let me bear the painful past and live happily. It's because of Brother Wu Yin that I can say from the bottom of my heart that I'm happy that night. But why? This time, Mayou's voice was filled with sadness. Why did you leave? Mayou, I don't have any family. I don't have any friends. Even now, the only friends I have are Ilia and Blackie. The only family I have here is Luvia. Mayou's back is facing Wu Yan. She kept using her words to hammer at Wu Yan's heart. In the past, I had an older brother. But now, he's no longer by my side. There have never been so many people who cared about me. Coming here and getting to know Ilia, Luvia, and Xiaohe, I'm very happy. I'm really happy. I can finally have people who value me. But among these people, the most important one is the one who once gave me support, who once gave me happiness, who once gave me the meaning of life. Mayou held back her sobs. Her voice was extremely hoarse. That person is you, Brother Wu Yin. Brother Wu Yin. Mayou abruptly turned around and rushed forward. She threw herself into Wu Yan's embrace. In just a short moment, she was at the front of Wu Yan's clothes. Please, I beg you. Don't go, Mayou. Wu Yan's eyes were filled with complicated emotions. He really did not expect that his position in Mayou's heart would be so important. He also did not expect that Mayou would rely on him so much. Looking at Mayou, who was grabbing his clothes tightly with her slender hands and her extremely thin shoulders that were constantly twitching, Wu Yan almost decided to stay in this world forever. Unfortunately, Mayou. Squatting down, Wu Yin embraced the petite girl in front of him. I'm sorry. Even if it's just for a moment, I have no choice but to leave you at this moment. Mei Yu's twitching shoulders trembled violently. In an instant, Wu Yin felt that the girl's body temperature in his embrace seemed to be dropping at a despairing speed. He could not help but hug Mei Yu tightly. In the place I'm about to go back, there are also people who rely on me like you. They think I'm the most important person, and they are waiting for me to bring them happiness. I can't be that selfish. I can't let one person suffer for the sake of another's happiness. That's why I can only keep searching for a way to make everyone happy. However, if I don't have the ability to do so, then I would be selfish. Wu Yin shook his head. So, Mei Yu, even if it's just for a little while, can you please wait for me for a little while? Lying in Wu Yan's arms, Mei Yu did not speak, but her twitching shoulders stopped. Only the hand that was grabbing Wu Yan's clothes kept tightening. Then, she said this. Are those people important to Wu Yanji? Very important. Wu Yin answered without hesitation. In this world, no, in all of the worlds, they are definitely the most important. There is no one else who can compare. Mei Yu's hand that was grabbing Wu Yan's clothes tightened. Then what about me? It's the same. Wu Yin smiled and whispered softly in Mei Yu's ear. No one is more important than you. Mei Yu's hand that was grabbing Wu Yan's clothes finally loosened a lot. Under the moonlight, two figures, one big and one small, tightly hugged each other, as if forever. Chapter 1557. I'll leave. The next day, in the main hall, the girls once again gathered around the dining table. All sorts of luxurious dishes were placed on the dining table. But this time, not a single one of them extended their chopsticks to the table. That was something that couldn't be helped. After all, just as the girls were about to start eating, Wu Yin, who was sitting at the head of the table, announced his plan in front of everyone. Leave. It was a simple word, but it stunned many of the young girls. The atmosphere in the main hall dropped to a rather heavy level. The girls all had different expressions on their faces. Livia, who knew about it earlier, remained silent. Rin in Osaka, who also knew about it earlier, had a very complicated expression. Mio lowered her head. Although her orange eyes were somewhat depressed, they no longer had the heart-wrenching sadness from last night. Chuju and Mikoto looked at each other with a helpless expression. As for Ilya and Blackie, who didn't know about this matter last night, they were dumbfounded. Their eyes were also filled with bewilderment. I don't agree. Their confusion didn't last for long. When it dissipated, Xiaohei slapped the table and stood up without thinking. Big brother, you're joking, right? Xiaohei's amber eyes stared at Wu Yan. She forced out a smile. This isn't funny at all. That's right. Ilya also stood up. Her delicate little face was filled with bewilderment. She looked like she was about to cry. I'll leave. Even if it's you, big brother, I won't forgive you for making such a joke. Wu Yan didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at Ilya and Xiaohei with his wine-red eyes. His eyes were calm. Big brother. Seeing those calm eyes, Ilya and Xiaohei finally realized that this was not a joke. More or less, panic appeared on their faces. Why do we have to leave? This time, it was Xiaohei who shouted first. Instead, it was Ilya who shouted. Isn't it good to stay here? Compared to Ilya, who was only now excited, Little Hay seemed to want to create a sharp contrast with him. The emotions on his face disappeared, and he regained his composure. He asked, is it because of the rank card? The reason I came to Fuyuki City is to get the 7 rank cards. Wu Yin sighed, and he took out the 7 rank cards. Now that I've gotten all 7 cards and completed my mission, it's time for me to continue my journey. Journey? It wasn't only Ilya and Blackie who reacted. Rin Inbun, Mio, and Livia also raised their heads and looked at Wu Yan. My mission is not only to obtain the 7 rank cards. There will be various other tasks in the future. I need to go to every place and complete them. Facing the gazes of the girls, Wu Yan shrugged his shoulders as if he was relaxed. I don't know when it will end, so calling it a journey is more or less the same. Hearing this, the girls all looked at each other in dismay. Obtaining the 7 rank cards is only a part of the mission? What part of the mission? Who is the one who issued the mission? Even the class car that the Association of Mages was helpless against was only one part of the mission. Then, what else did he need to do for this mission? Where do I have to go to do it? These questions flashed through every girl's mind at the same time. After having these questions, the girls realized that they didn't know anything about Wu Yin, Chuju, and Mikoto. Where did they come from? What is their true identity? Was there someone standing behind them and arranging tasks for them? Rin and Osaka, Luvia, Ilya, Mio, and Blackie didn't know any of this. What's even more unbelievable is that Wu Yin, despite not knowing about any of this, has already occupied a large space in the hearts of many of the girls. Isn't this unbelievable? Similarly, without knowing anything, the girls couldn't judge whether Wu Yan's mission was good or bad, and whether they should support him or not. Therefore, they were speechless at Wu Yan. Do you have to leave? In the end, Xiao He channeled all of his emotions into this one sentence. He stared at Wu Yan without letting go. If Big Brother leaves, I won't be able to live. This wasn't an exaggeration. Little Black needed someone to provide him with magic power to maintain his existence. If he lost the support of magic power, Little Black would directly disappear. Currently, it was Wu Yin who provided her with mana. If Wu Yin leaves, Blackie would have to find a way to obtain mana from others. But if that's the case, other people's mana wouldn't be as good as Wu Yan's, and Blackie would have to absorb mana from countless people to maintain her existence. If she absorbs mana from ordinary people, it would cause them to go into shock due to excessive mana consumption. In serious cases, their life force would be converted into mana and absorbed by Blackie. Therefore, if possible, Blackie doesn't want to absorb mana from ordinary people. But if she absorbs mana from magicians, would Rin and Osaka and Luvia agree? Would Ilya and Mio agree? If all four of them don't agree, is Blackie supposed to find Badget? Then, Blackie would rather disappear by herself. That's why Blackie wouldn't be able to live without Wu Yan. Although it's more or less an exaggeration, it can't be said to be false. All right, can you all stop looking at me with such a heavy expression? Wu Yan bitterly smiled when he saw the heavy and complicated expressions on the girls' faces. Right now, I can't explain my situation to you all. All you need to know is that I won't be gone for long. Won't be gone for long? Ilya was stunned for a moment before she hurriedly asked, "How long will it be?" "Well," Wu Yan scratched his cheeks and shrugged. "Perhaps I'll be back tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" The group of girls were all stunned. Blackie even exclaimed in surprise. "So soon? How long do you think it will take?" Wu Yan rolled his eyes at Rin and Osaka, Luvia, Ilya, Mio, and Blackie. "Do you all think that this separation will be forever?" "But," Ilya said with uncertainty, "Big Brother, didn't you just say that you have a lot of missions to complete?" "But, like I said, I won't be able to explain my situation to you guys." Wu Yan hesitated for a bit, as if he's thinking about how he should explain himself. In the end, he had no choice but to say this out loud. "All in all you need to know is that the next time we meet, it won't be long." Hearing this, whether it was Ilya, Blackie, Neo, Rin Tasaka, or even Luvia, their expressions became much better. "It's a promise." Ilya jumped off her chair and ran to Wu Yan. She extended her pinky. "You can't lie. Since when did I lie to you?" Wu Yan smiled and scratched Ilya's little nose. Ilya was embarrassed. Then he extended his pinky and hooked it with Ilya's. "I've promised all of you that it won't be too long before we meet again." Ilya immediately revealed an incomparably adorable smile, causing Xiao He to be incomparably envious. He ran over while shouting, "Me too. I also want to make a promise with Big Brother." After saying that, he didn't care about Ilya's reaction and squeezed her away, causing her to almost fall. "Yuwa." Ilya quickly stabilized herself and glared at Blackie. "You despicable person." Blackie stuck out her tongue at Ilya and made a funny face. She hooked her little finger around Wu Yan's little finger. This made Ilya even angrier. She pounced on Blackie and started messing around with her. Seeing this scene, the rest of the girls smiled. Wu Yan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. At this moment, another small pinky hooked Wu Yan's pinky. It was Mio's pinky who came to Wu Yan's side and stared at Wu Yan. It's a promise. Staring at Mio's serious and determined orange eyes, Wu Yin sighed and smiled. Yes, it's a promise. Chapter 1558. Since Wu Yin, Chuju, and Mikoto are about to leave Fuyuki City, the girls decided to hold a farewell party. Although it's called a farewell party, it's actually just a banquet at Livia's house. Moreover, all the dishes used in the banquet must be prepared by Wu Yin himself. The reason is because Wu Yan's cooking is too delicious. As a result, one of the main characters of this farewell party became the chef who prepared the food and drinks for the young ladies. Moreover, it's for an entire day. Fortunately, Ilya, Mio, and Xiaohei happened to be on holiday, so they didn't need to go to class today. This farewell party was very lively in the Eiderfeldt's living room. Chuju and Mikoto also seemed to have blended in, chatting and laughing with everyone. Even Mio, who usually works as a maid and has always been very calm, chatted with Chuju and Mikoto happily. This scene, for those who know Mio, might be a bit unbelievable, right? But it's very cute. The other girls were pretty much the same. Ilya and Xiaohei seemed to be very reluctant to part. During the entire farewell party, they stayed by Wu Yan's side for the first half of the time. When the sky was almost dark, they went to find Chuju and Mikoto to talk before parting. Livia, on the other hand, sat in her seat the whole time, elegantly drinking black tea, eating, and chatting with others from time to time. She didn't appear to be too friendly. That's natural. Among all the girls, if there's one girl who has the worst relationship with Wu Yin, Chuju, and Mikoto, then it's definitely Livia. After all, other than when Livia and Wu Yin came to collect cards, they never interacted with her. Other than that, there's almost no chance for them to meet. Not to mention, Wu Yin, Chuju, and Mikoto were the main culprits who ruined Livia's grand plan to become his disciple. The fact that they were willing to provide the venue and financial support for this farewell party was already quite magnanimous of them. However, there was also one person present who was unusually silent. The entire farewell party ended. He hadn't spoken more than 10 sentences. Rin silently drank the drink in her hand. She glanced at everyone around her. After making sure no one noticed her, she stood up from her seat and quietly left the venue. However, Rin and Osaka didn't know. From the beginning to the end, there was one person who had been paying attention to her. Rin and Osaka pushed open the door and walked out of the mansion into the courtyard. He raised his head and looked at the sky. The night sky was still bright. Stars dotted the sky, and the full moon was like the leader of all the stars. It was located in the middle of the stars, as if it had transformed into one of the stars. It was also the largest star. Together with the surrounding stars, it emitted a gentle light sigh. Rin and Osaka looked at the beautiful night sky and sighed deeply. I really shouldn't have come. This sentence was sincere, but also a lie. She came here to attend the farewell party for Wu Yin, Chuju, and Mikoto. Rin and Osaka didn't want to go at all, even though she didn't say it out loud. Rin and Osaka knew that she didn't want that person to leave. That's why. Rin and Osaka didn't want to attend the farewell party from the bottom of her heart. The sentence, I really shouldn't have come, was definitely sincere, but even though she thought so, if she didn't come, Rin and Osaka's heart would feel empty. Thus, the sentence, I really shouldn't have come, was another lie. Damn it. Rin and Osaka's conflicted thoughts made her kick a pebble that landed on the ground. Why do I have to worry so much about that guy? That guy's an enemy, isn't he? Not only did he stop me from becoming his disciple, he also stole my first kiss and forced a kiss on me every time. What a jerk. It's best if that guy leaves. Damn it. Every time he spoke, Rin would kick a pebble next to his feet. He wanted to kick away the frustration and depression in his heart along with the pebbles. However, as the pebbles flew out, Rin Tozaka didn't feel any satisfaction. Instead, he became even more frustrated. In fact, Rin Inbin knew that this day would come sooner or later. He didn't foresee the departure of Wu Yin and company, rather. He foresaw his own departure. Rin in Osaka is the candidate for chairman of the Magic Association's Chronometer Tower. Regardless of whether or not she manages to retrieve all her cards and successfully become Zelrich's disciple, she must return to the Magic Association headquarters in London. Because of this, Rin in Osaka was mentally prepared to part with the people here at any time. However, Rin in Osaka didn't expect that in the end, not only would she be the first to leave, it would be the person she cared about the most. Rin in Osaka laughed self-deprecatingly. We've only known each other for less than 2 months. I can't believe I'm feeling this way. It's so unlike me. Her self-deprecating words were met with a mocking response. You didn't argue with Livia. You didn't cause a ruckus in that kind of place. It's so unlike you. Rin in Osaka took out a frozen drink from behind her and stuck it to her face. Wah! The sudden voice and the cold touch on his cheek made Rin Hasaka jump up. He turned his head and looked behind him. Then, since the day before, or rather, since yesterday, Rin in Osaka saw the person who had been causing his heart to be unable to calm down. You're here alone, trying to observe the stars. Wu Yin threw the frozen drink at Rin in Osaka with a half-smile on his face. It's also not like you to do something like this. Rin Osaka gasped when he saw the canned drink flying towards his face. He hastily caught it before glaring at Wu Yin. What are you doing? Shouldn't I be the one asking you that question? Wu Yin smirked. He stood next to Rin in Osaka and looked up at the night sky. You've already written I have something on my mind on your face. Why don't you come out to check on the situation? Who has something on my mind? Rin turned his head away. He didn't even look at Wu Yin. Who knows if he's trying to hide his expression or if he really doesn't want to see Wu Yin. His sullen voice echoed around the area. Why did you come out? Aren't you worried about those clingy little guys? Don't worry. Don't worry. I'm not like you. I didn't even greet anyone before I came out. Wu Yin glanced at Rin as he casually replied. Don't you need someone to accompany you? Of course. Of course. Rin in Osaka said without hesitation. I'm the chairman of the Magic Association's Chronometer Tower, the current head of the in Osaka family. Do you think I'm afraid of being lonely? I don't know if you're afraid of being lonely or not. Wu Yin chuckled. But I don't think anyone told you that you'll show it on your face when you're upset, right? Rin in Osaka opened his mouth slightly as if he wanted to refute, but in the end, he didn't say anything. Instead, he hesitated for a while before saying this. Where were you guys going? Wu Yin slowly retracted his smile, and he looked up at the night sky. To a place you'll never expect. A place I'll never expect? Rin in Osaka sneered. Although I can't say that there are no places that I can't think of, there are only a handful of them. If you go to such a place, can you still be so confident that you can come back in a short time? Maybe not for me. Wu Yin shook his head. But for all of you, this period of time will definitely not be too long. Don't be so secretive. Can't you just tell me? Rin in Osaka was furious. Do you think it's fun to be so secretive all the time? Oh. Wu Yin raised an eyebrow, and he laughed out loud. You want to know my secret? Why don't you try and find it yourself? Wu Yin waved his hand and returned to the mansion. Rin in Osaka clenched his teeth as he looked at Wu Yan's back. How infuriating. Rin in Osaka didn't realize that the frustration in his heart had unknowingly disappeared. Chapter 1559. The sky was clear, the clouds were untainted, the mountains were moist, the wind was warm. At the top of the azure sky, there were no clouds for thousands of miles, not even a wisp of cloud. It was as if all colors had been filtered out. The few remaining thin white clouds seemed to have been melted by the sun and slowly dissipated with the wind, causing the sky to sparkle magnificently. The sun and fresh air shrouded the land. Sometimes, the sun would walk into the few clouds that were about to dissipate. The light would shine through the clouds and onto the rivers and seas of Fuyuki City. Sometimes, there would be dark clouds floating in the sky. The clouds were so thick that when the sun came out, it was impossible to see it. But the rays of the sun in the clouds penetrated the encirclement and set the clouds with a glittering rim of gold. Soon after, the sun slowly rushed out from the clouds and appeared in the sky. It even dyed the dark clouds golden, causing them to dissipate as if they had melted. At this time, it wasn't only the sun, the clouds, and the sea that were shining. Even the land was bright. The weather was so clear. Looking from the window, the transparent blue sky looked like a silk handkerchief. Inside the window, two girls were busy with cleaning utensils. The two girls had been in this state since they woke up in the morning, standing in the middle of the hall. Wu Yin looked at Hinajiku and Mikoto, who were wearing aprons and busying themselves around. His expression is somewhat helpless. Okay, do you have to be like this? If you have time to be sarcastic, why don't you come and help? Mikoto wiped the sweat off her forehead. She held a broom with one hand and put the other on her waist. Can't you see how busy we are? Just a little bit more. Chuju didn't look back. She was tidying up the kitchen. Once this is done, the cleaning is done. So, even if you do a cleaning, so what? Wu Yin was speechless. When we leave, time will freeze in this world. When we come back, this house will still be the same as when we left. Do we need to do this before we leave? That's true. Mikoto looked around. He sighed. After all, we've been living here for 1 or 2 months, and we've been living quite well. Don't clean this place up. There will be a knot in my heart. Anyway, if we have the chance to come back again, she would continue to live here, wouldn't she? Chuju glanced at Wu Yin. When you come back and see a clean house, you'll be in a good mood, right? But if I remember correctly, Wu Yin covered his forehead with one hand and pointed out a cruel fact with a headache. These places, since you woke up in the morning, you've tidied everything inside and out 3 times, right? 3 times? Hinajiku and Mikoto looked at each other and said awkwardly, Is there really that much? How much do you think it is? Wu Yin felt like bubbles were coming out of his throat. I was woken up at 5 in the morning by the two of you. You said you wanted to clean the room and dry the sheets, but the room has been cleaned at least 3 times. As for the blankets, one of you said you'd bring them back after drying them, and the other took them out to dry again. You've dried the blankets inside and out 8 times. Ah, Mikoto scratched her head and laughed. Now that you mention it, I think I have some recollection. What's the matter? Chuju puffed up her cheeks and turned her head away. We have feelings for this place, and we don't want to leave. Actually, instead of saying they didn't want to leave this house, it was more accurate to say that Chuju and Mikoto didn't want to leave the house for the past 2 months. Although they had to fight in the mirror realm of the imaginary number region at night and had fought with Rin Inbin, Luvia, Mio, and Ilya, Blackie, and Badget, other than that, the 2 girls' days here were very ordinary. Ever since they followed Wu Yin to the Spalier world, the 2 girls didn't have a normal life in the Spalier world. Besides, even if there were battles, Rin Inbin's group, rank cards, Badget, and many other problems, Wu Yin, Chuju, and Mikoto worked together to solve these problems. The 2 girls felt like they were back to the time when the 3 of them were the only ones exploring the world. It's understandable that they didn't want to leave. Of course, now that they have so many companions, Chuju and Mikoto weren't unhappy at all. Now that the base in the Behemoth Forest has been completed, the capital of alternate generations has become the home of the Summoners and the Misaka sisters. If nothing major happened, they could just stay in the capital of alternate generations and live a normal life, and they would still be able to visit the girls. Until now, the happy life that the girls have been praying for finally took shape with the completion of the capital of alternate generations. Now, all they need is a guarantee, and they can continue living like this. That guarantee, needless to say, is to have the power to deal with all accidents and protect their happy life and home. With that thought in mind, Chuju and Mikoto turned their eyes to Wu Yin. Their eyes were filled with gentleness. In order to find the power to protect everything, Wu Yin has been wandering between the Spalier world and the various dungeon worlds to increase his strength. Now, all he needs to do is complete the Demigod Path quest and reach the level of Pinnacle Demigod, and Wu Yin will become a Pinnacle Demigod. He will become the strongest in the Spalier world in the truest sense of the word. Under these conditions, plus the fact that the system still has S-rank equipment and mythical armaments that can provide the power of God, Wu Yin can exchange for the S-rank equipment and obtain the power of God. When that happens, with the help of the power of God, Wu Yin will have the chance to become a true God-tier expert. When that time comes, a truly peaceful and happy life will befall everyone living in the capital of alternate generations. In order to welcome the arrival of that day, Chuju and Mikoto swore to themselves that they won't fall too far behind the most important person in front of them. No matter how reluctant I am, it has to end here. The yin, who was oblivious to Chuju and Mikoto's determination, looked around and sighed. If this goes on, there will be no end to it. All right. Chuju and Mikoto snapped out of their daze and reluctantly put down the cleaning tools in their hands. They untied their aprons and folded them carefully before coming to Wu Yan's side. By the way, aren't you going to say goodbye to the children? Mikoto wrinkled her nose. Because you're leaving, the children are quite affected, aren't they? Yes, that's why they're children. Wu Yan's expression was helpless. I already said I won't be leaving for long. But that's cute too. Chuju couldn't help but smile. Why don't you summon them to the Spalier world as well? Even if we go back, I'll continue with the Demigod Path mission. Wu Yan shook his head. If that's the case, wouldn't it be the same as leaving the children in a foreign world? That's true. That's true. Mikoto nodded in agreement. In a foreign world, you won't be by my side. Even if we won't be apart for long due to the time ratio, it still won't feel good. That's why I'll wait until the Demigod Path mission is over and I've ascended to Demigod Pinnacle before we talk about this. Wu Yan shrugged. Before that, let's be apart for a second. What about Rin Enbin and Livia? Chuju glanced at Wu Yan. Aren't you going to say goodbye to them? Forget it. Wu Yan hesitated for a moment before shaking his head. I've already said everything that needs to be said. After we leave, the time in this world will freeze. Instead of parting with sadness, it's better to wait for the next reunion. Oh? Mikoto raised an eyebrow. You're already interested in having them as your summons? Of course not. Wu Yan chuckled and mumbled. At least not all of them. What did you say? Nothing. Stepping forward, he arrived in front of Inajiku and Mikoto before looking at the two girls. Well then, let's go back. The two girls nodded. In the hall, the three figures disappeared without a trace. Everything returned to normal. Chapter 1560. Spalier World, Behemoth Forest. Ever since the birth of the Beast King and the demonic beast rampage, no one has entered this natural treasure trove of the Spalier World. In order to prevent the innocent warriors and magicians from being destroyed by the demonic beasts, Ailu, Buba, and Fea empires have set up camps near the Behemoth Forest. Only after passing through the camp's management and gaining the approval of the camp's person in charge could they enter the giant beast forest with a specific purpose and be dispatched. Hunting demonic beasts in the Behemoth Forest is also a way to get the resources needed for the Spalier World's market to operate normally. If it weren't for this reason, perhaps the camp's mission would only be to guard the Behemoth Forest and prevent the demonic beast from coming out. However, even if the camps send teams into the Behemoth Forest every day, the number of people in the Behemoth Forest has decreased. In the past, they could enter and leave as they please. Now, they need to organize teams to enter the Behemoth Forest. In the past, there were more people entering the Behemoth Forest. Under these circumstances, no one knows that in the Behemoth Forest, where both danger and opportunity exist at the same time, there is something that others can't see. If someone can see the abnormality in this area, then they can see that around the area, there's a transparent barrier that ripples like water. It is a semicircle that covers more than 80% of the area. Inside this semicircular transparent barrier that covered more than 80% of the open space, there was a fortress that was located within it. The steel-like walls, which were at least 100 meters tall, spread out to both sides, forming a circle that surrounded everything in the fortress. Inside the fortress, tall buildings stood in great numbers. However, they were of different types and styles. They were orderly, but they also seemed to be uneven. It is like a strange city where buildings from different eras are gathered together. In this city where buildings of different styles, types, and tastes are gathered together, there are also those with short brown hair and brown eyes, delicate face and slender body. They look exactly the same. Girls with a lack of expression are living their lives. Some are staying in their homes. Some are walking outside on the streets. Some are enjoying their daily lives. Some of them were working as shop owners. There were also people wearing the same uniform, with an armband embroidered with the word patrol on their arms, walking up and down the streets. Apart from the identical looks and figures, this was simply a living city. As for the Misaka sisters, they were just like normal girls, living a leisurely and ordinary life. This is the current capital of alternate eras. At the center of the capital of alternate generations, there was an inverted pyramid-shaped building with the highest height, which allowed one to have a panoramic view of the entire capital of alternate generations. The heart of alternate eras. This is where Wu Yin and his summons live. At this moment, Makoto was standing at a window on the top floor of Generation's heart. Through the window, she looked down at the Misaka sisters who were living their lives peacefully. Her tea-colored eyes were actually red. This is great. This is great. Wu Yin and Chuju, who were standing behind Makoto, are also looking at the scene below. They saw Makoto's excited expression and smiled gently. They can understand Makoto's feelings. Originally, the Misaka sisters were only clones. They were born as experimental subjects in the magic catalog world. They were killed by Accelerator and used by Alistair. In order to save the Misaka sisters, Makoto had sunk into the depths of darkness and despair. Later on, even though Wu Yin gave Makoto a glimmer of hope and saved all the sisters still couldn't be said to be completely out of danger. After all, there were too many people who coveted the existence of the Misaka sisters in the magic catalog world. There are so many conflicts in the Spalier world that in the end, the Misaka sisters picked up their weapons and joined the battle. Of course, it was more like hunting in the giant beast forest. Occasionally, they would get rid of the bugs in the giant beast forest. Compared to the life in the magic catalog world, life in the giant beast forest was like heaven to the Misaka sisters. But Makoto doesn't want the Misaka sisters to join the battle at all, although the Misaka sisters don't care about it. The truth is that the Misaka sisters have never lived a good life since they were born. They haven't even lived a normal life. This is something Makoto can't bear to see. It was also because of this that Makoto was the one who put in the most effort and labor when they decided to build the base and give the Misaka sisters a place to rest. It's all for the sake of letting the Misaka sisters live a normal life without any conflicts. Unfortunately, in this world, there are endless conflicts. Without the power to protect everything, there's no such thing as a happy life. This is because there's no telling when it will be destroyed. Even now, the Misaka sisters seem to be living a normal life in the capital of alternate generations. But there's no telling when there will be a large-scale battle. Because of this, seeing the Misaka sisters living a normal life in the capital of alternate generations, Makoto's heart was filled to the brim. She almost couldn't stop her tears from flowing. Right now, the capital of alternate generations is surrounded by Yukari's barrier and the defensive items that Wu Yin exchanged from the system. If anyone wants to invade the capital of alternate generations, they'll need at least a demigod or a large-scale army and a demonic beast army. But in the Spalier world, how many demigods are there? And how many of them have the power to form a large-scale army and a demonic beast army that can rival a demigod? Even if a demigod or a large-scale army or a demonic beast army were to invade the capital of alternate generations, they'll have to go through Wu Yin and the girls first. With Yukari, a level 96 demigod, Wu Yin, a peak level 9 powerhouse, and a group of girls who are at least peak level 8 guarding the capital of alternate generations, who would dare to invade the capital of alternate generations. That's why Makoto knew that if there's no accident, the scene she's witnessing right now will go on forever. Her wish to let the Misaka sisters live a normal life has finally come true. How could Makoto not be excited? Makoto aside, even Wu Yin and Chuju couldn't help but feel elated when they saw this scene. It made them happy and gave them a great sense of accomplishment. In order to create this scene, the children have put in a lot of effort. Yukari, who was holding a paper fan, looked at the peaceful scene below and couldn't help but smile. I still remember that when the establishment of the capital of a foreign generation was just announced, many of the sisters were seriously thinking about how they should live here. Even though there was no expression on their faces, they were looking forward to their future lives. There's no doubt about this. Life Chuju said with some emotion. So, even if there's no need, some of the sisters are still opening shops. The things sold in those shops are all made by the sisters themselves. Yukari smiled happily. Clothes, food, decorations, and even potted plants and flowers are all made by those sisters according to their own interests and hobbies. They put them in the shop to sell. Everything you see now is presented because they decided what they want to do. Even the clothes and decorations are made by themselves. Wu Yin is a bit surprised and impressed at the same time. That's really something. When did the sisters learn to do this? Then, the things sold in those shops are also set by the sisters. Chuju asked with interest. Is the currency that my sisters use to buy things and buy raw materials for making items that need to be circulated in the market from Purple Flow? Those children don't use currency to buy and sell things. Yukari chuckled. Sometimes, they use items to exchange with each other. Sometimes it's just a small condition like cooking a meal. There are all kinds of forms. Of course, even if they don't, when they see that their sisters really want their things, those children will also give away the things they made with their own hands. Hearing this, Hinajiku showed a look of yearning. How enviable, such a life. The way the sisters live is really attractive. There's no profit or human selfishness. They do whatever they want. Opening their own shops and making things, this was also the kind of life that his younger sisters wished for. Yukari also said that even if there's nothing to exchange for these things, the sisters will give away the things they made themselves. That's because the ones who need these things are their sisters. Isn't such a life desirable enough? Stop talking. Mikoto rubbed her eyes, wiping away all the moisture in them. She pulled Hinajika's hand and couldn't wait to start yelling. Chuju, let's go shopping together. Okay. Hinajiku agreed without hesitation. She seemed to have thought of this a long time ago. The two of them rushed out without saying goodbye. Wu Yin and Yukari didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Chapter 1561. How's the mission going on your side? Yukari asked Wu Yin with an expression like she's interested in something she rarely does. It should be done, right? Well, Wu Yin scratched his head. Although there were a lot of problems in the middle, I finally completed it. It's good that you can complete it. Yukari patted the paper fan in her hand and glanced at Wu Yin. It's rare to have a shortcut that allows you to climb to the top. You have to grasp it well. I know what you're trying to say, but sometimes accidents happen. Wu Yin recalled how he almost gave up on the Demigod Path quest due to his archer class being stuck in Blackie's body. He sighed. The Demigod Path mission is indeed a rare opportunity. However, there are some things that I can't lean towards just because it's more beneficial to me when I'm truly comparing them. Oh? Yukari looked at Wu Yin in surprise. She smiled at him with a deeper meaning. Looks like you've spent a lot of effort in this dungeon world. You can even say something so profound. I'm just saying. Wu Yin shrugged. However, this Demigod Path mission has made me realize how difficult it is. Although there will be trouble in the second phase of the Demigod Path mission, it's mainly because I'm looking for trouble no matter what. Try to complete it to the end if you can. Yukari waved the paper fan in her hand casually. Since the capital of a different era is here, there won't be anything to worry about in the Spalier world. You can focus on your own mission. I've always planned to do that. When Chuju and Mikoto come back, I'll immediately depart for the third part of the Demigod Path mission. Wu Yin shrugged and looked at Yukari. Speaking of which, Yukari, aren't you going to a dungeon world with me? Do I look like the kind of person who would run around for something? Yukari looked at Wu Yin with a faint smile. I'm interested in other dungeon worlds as well, but compared to running around in different worlds, I prefer a leisurely life. That's not a leisurely life. You can just say that you're lazy. Wu Yin rolled his eyes at Yukari. I really don't know how a lazy person like you managed to manage the Fantasy Village's barriers so well. We're just here to take care of the Fantasy Village's enchantment. Normally, the only person who would manage the enchantment is that shameless witch who hides in the shrine and plays with her own life. Yukari opened her paper fan and covered the lower half of her face. We're basically the same in the Fantasy Village. Yukari's deep purple eyes were the only thing that could be seen. The lower half of her face was covered by the paper fan. If Wu Yin didn't know Yukari well enough, he would have believed that Yukari didn't care about Jinsokyo. Indeed, Yukari was also very lazy when she was in the fantasy village. She would hide her own house and use her gap ability to peek at others. As the founder of the fantasy village, she did not care much about the matters in the fantasy village. Instead, she advocated the policy of turning a blind eye to it. However, that was mainly because the matters in the village were either trivial matters or things that would never be out of Yukari's control. If something happened in the fantasy village that could threaten her existence and force Yukari to take action personally, Yukari would never be careless about it. That was why Yukari was acting like it had nothing to do with her. He could just treat it as its tsundere. Are you sure you don't want to go? Wu Yin tried to tempt her with a seductive tone. Perhaps the dungeon world in the third round of the Demigod Path mission is Fantasy Village. By that time, I'll go to Fantasy Village and the time flow in Fantasy Village will return to normal. If something happens and you're not there, then I'll leave it to you. Yukari was unfazed. She even pushed her responsibility to Wu Yin as she casually opened her mouth. Don't you have my red jade mode? In a way, you're like me, aren't you? Huh, you're flattering me. Wu Yin sighed. Putting aside the fact that the red jade mode has a time limit, if I activate your red jade mode, I'll only be on par with you in terms of strength. How can I compare to you in other aspects? Yukari Yakumo, a sage shifter, a great shifter who has lived for more than 1,000 years. Even if Wu Yin could use the ruby mode to achieve the same level of strength as Yukari, he wouldn't dare boast that he could solve everything in the fantasy village. After all, there were people stronger than Yakumo Yukari in Fantasy Village. However, Yakumo Yukari was still able to manage Fantasy Village so well. This was enough to prove that not everything in Fantasy Village could be solved with power alone. With the title of Sage, Yakumo Yukari's wisdom was unquestionable. And this wisdom was the true reason why she was able to manage Fantasy Village. Strength, on the other hand, is secondary if Wu Yin were to manage the Fantasy Village. Forget it. Thinking about the endless weird happenings in Jinsokyo and the bunch of problem children who only know how to eat and drink without a shred of integrity, Wu Yan's head started to hurt. Well, it's not as complicated as you think. Yukari smiled as if she could see through Wu Yan's thoughts. Even though I'm the founder of the Fantasy Village, I do have a lot of free time. In the Fantasy Village, Yukari is invincible. With her around, there's no need for the manager to worry about the Fantasy Village. I think it's because of that shameless Yukari who only knows how to eat and drink like you that the Fantasy Village has problems. Wu Yin complained. If you guys are more proactive, the Fantasy Village can be renamed to the Ideal Village. Didn't we say it already? It was hard to tell if she was joking or being serious. Violet's face had an expression that was hard to tell. Why don't you try managing the Fantasy Village? Are you serious or are you joking? Wu Yin wasn't sure if Yukari meant something else when she said those words. Wu Yin couldn't tell what Yukari was trying to say. If it's me, I definitely can't manage Fantasy Village. Didn't I tell you that Ling Ming will take care of the matters in Fantasy Village? Yukari looked at Wu Yan's frightened face with amusement. Leave the big things to Yukari. Leave the small things to Yukari or your little girlfriends. As for yourself, you can just live a leisurely life. Yukari, it's my fault. Wu Yan almost cowed out. I shouldn't have made fun of you. Please forgive me. Is that so? The smile on Amethyst's face deepened. That's a pity. Well, if you change your mind, you can come find me. I don't mind leaving the Fantasy Village to you guys. You sure know when to let go. Wu Yin retreated in defeat. Aren't you afraid that we'll mess up the Fantasy Village? There are a lot of problem children in the Fantasy Village. Yukari pouted. Compared to them, you guys are more obedient than babies. Yukari turned around with her back, facing Wu Yin. Are you going to wait for Chuju and Mikoto to come back and take them to the Demigod Path mission? Yeah. Wu Yin tilted his head in confusion. Is there a problem? There's no problem. However, there's one thing that I suddenly thought of. Z tapped her face with the paper fan and said with a smile. Tonight, two of your little girlfriends will complete their transformation in the lake. Tonight? Wu Yin paused and asked, "Who's coming out?" "Well, you'll find out tonight." Yukari didn't expose him. She waved her fan and walked outside. Looking at Hinajiku and Mikoto, I don't think they'll be willing to leave their sisters anytime soon. The third mission, Demigod's Path, I'll need you to bring the two girls from the lake with you. They should be very happy too, right? Leaving these words behind, Purple left the scene without looking back. Tonight, gazing at the direction Yukari left, Wu Yin walked back to the window. He looked at the Misaka sisters walking up and down the street, and he mumbled in anticipation. Who will it be? Chapter 1562. Selling pastries. Fresh and delicious pastries. Do. Misaka 1760 shouted loudly. Come and look at clothes. Here's some nice clothes. Do. Misaka 16307 shouted loudly. Is there anyone who wants to buy flowers? Do. Misaka 2640 carefully held her favorite flower while observing the surrounding customers. Please come and take a look at Misaka's greatest masterpiece. Do. Misaka 1047 raised her umbrella and proudly showed off. On both sides of the retro-styled street that was similar to the Western style, such voices constantly reverberated in the air and passed into the ears of everyone walking on the street. The voices came from the shops on both sides of the retro-styled Western street. The voices came from the mouths of the shop owners. Judging from the scene alone, it was undoubtedly very much like a very lively commercial street, or a street of stalls set up during a large-scale event. It was necessary to increase the number of customers for oneself. However, if someone were to personally visit the scene, they wouldn't have the mood to patronize these shops. This was because the shouts that were reverberating in the air were all emotionless, devoid of uplift, and cold as if they were listless and cold. Standing at the corner of the street, Wu Yin looked at the scene and felt a sense of helplessness. Yukari said that two girls would finish their metamorphosis and emerge from the lake tonight. She wanted him to bring them to the 1564th takoyaki stall. Misaka is setting up a stall. Do. Misaka 10032 is reporting to Oni-sama and using her eyes to signal Oni-sama, who I haven't seen in a long time. Misaka 1032 said as she moved her head closer to Wu Yan's face until there was less than 5 centimeters between them. Her brown pupils stared straight into Wu Yan's wine-red eyes and stopped talking. That, looking at Misaka 10,032's expressionless face, Wu Yin laughed dryly. Please forgive me for not having the ability to read other people's inner thoughts from their eyes. Is that so? Misaka 1003-2 understood and distanced herself from him. Wu Yin let out a sigh of relief. However, Misaka 10,032's next words made Wu Yin freeze on the spot. As Oni-sama's Oni-sama, you don't even have such an inhuman ability. Do. Misaka 1032 was disappointed and looked at Oni-sama with disdain. She wanted Oni-sama to realize his stupidity. Wu Yin forced a laugh. I'm sorry, I'm just that stupid. There's no other way. I can only tell Oni-sama what I mean. Misaka 1003-2 pointed at her stall again. Oni-sama, do you want to try Misaka's takoyaki? Do. Misaka 1032. Let go of the disappointment in your heart and look forward to your answer. Fine. Listening to Misaka 10,032's way of expressing herself, Wu Yin helplessly shook his head. Then I'll try it. Misaka is very happy. Misaka 1003-2 said with an expressionless face. Then, what is Oni-sama going to offer in exchange for Misaka's takoyaki? Do. Misaka 1003-2 asked Oni-sama while thinking about whether Oni-sama should use his underwear to exchange for Misaka's takoyaki. Do you usually use your underwear to exchange for other sisters' things? Wu Yan's knees went soft, and he almost fell to the ground. If so, please let me set up a stall here. Oni-sama wants Misaka's underwear? Do. Misaka 10032 asked shyly, while thinking about the saying all men are beasts. All right, I was wrong. I don't want it all. As a man, Oni-sama actually doesn't want a cute girl's underwear. That goes against common sense. Do. Misaka 10032. Let's put aside the previous question and reconsider the saying, all men who don't covet a girl's underwear are frigid. I really want to ask, where did you guys hear this from? This is common sense. Do. Misaka 10032 said, as if it was a matter of fact. She was shocked that Oni-sama didn't know such common sense. I really didn't know there was such common sense. Oni-sama is an idiot. Do. Misaka 10032 came to a conclusion. Are you going to give me takoyaki or not? Then, Oni-sama, please use your underwear to exchange for it. Do. Misaka 10032 stated her condition. Let's change the condition. Don't tell me Oni-sama isn't wearing it. Chapter 1563. Wu Yin looked at the toy sniper rifle in his hand as he stood in front of the stall selling takoyaki. What is this? Gun. Misaka's sister, who was also holding a toy sniper rifle, answered simply. I know it's a gun. Wu Yin suppressed his helplessness and continued to ask patiently. I'm asking, what are you planning to do by giving me a gun? Oni-sama wants to eat takoyaki, but you don't have what Misaka wants to trade it with, right? Misaka's sister raised the toy sniper rifle in her hand as she explained. So, if Oni-sama wants takoyaki, you have to follow the rules of the shop and compete with Misaka. Misaka 10032 explained to Oni-sama. She felt it was a pity that she didn't get Oni-sama's underwear. Competition. Wu Yin ignored Misaka 10,032's explanation and looked at Misaka 10032 suspiciously. What competition? Shoot. Misaka 10032 spat out these two words and pointed at a human-shaped target wearing a cloak in her stall. That's a human-shaped target made by Misaka. There's a number on each part of the target. If you hit the target, you'll get the number on the number. Everyone has 3 bullets. Whoever gets the most points wins the competition. Misaka 10032 explained patiently. I see. Wu Yin got the gist of what Misaka 10032 means. So, if I get more points than you and beat you, I'll get takoyaki? Correct. That's right. Misaka 10032 nodded and added this sentence. On the other hand, if Misaka gets more points than Oni-sama, if I beat Oni-sama, I'll get Oni-sama's underwear. Misaka 10032 finished her explanation. It started to burn. Don't just burn it. Wu Yin couldn't help but shout. When did I agree to use my underwear as a bet? Oni-sama will get what he wants if he wins the competition. In that case, if Misaka wins the match, you should also get what you want. This is the most basic rule of a competition. Misaka 10032 stared intently at Wu Yan's face. Or perhaps Oni-sama has the despicable idea of obtaining Misaka's takoyaki unconditionally, and Misaka won't object. Misaka tried her best to show her magnanimity, but she despised Oni-sama's idea. Wu Yan's strength instantly disappeared. In the past, he thought that the way the Misaka sisters talked was cute. It was also a way to show that the Misaka sisters did not hide their true thoughts. They were very worthy of love. But now, this kind of idea, they really disappeared without a trace. Together with the strength in his body, since you've said it to this extent, Wu Yin gritted his teeth. Good. I agree to your conditions. Shooting was not Wu Yan's specialty. However, Wu Yin did put a lot of effort into the shooting aspect of the noble phantasm that has great destructive power, meteor shower. Although the Misaka sisters also use guns as their weapons in the magic catalog world, the target was less than 5 meters away. It was such a short distance. Wu Yin was confident that he could shoot wherever he wanted. Therefore, he could at least get full marks. Under such circumstances, even if the Misaka sisters also got full marks, it would at most be a draw. Both of them would not get what they wanted, but at least he could keep his underwear. As for the Misaka sisters' takoyaki, Wu Yin did not really want it. He only said that because he wanted to patronize the Misaka sisters. Who would have thought that something like this would happen? Using his underwear as a bet. Wasn't this a trap? If he were to use the Misaka sisters' underwear as a bet, he would be more motivated. Then, let's begin. Misaka 1003-2 walked into her stall and removed the cloak on the human target. No matter what, I won't lose. Although the bet was a trap, Wu Yin felt that he had to be serious in order to keep his underwear. However, this ambition disappeared when Misaka 1003-2 lifted the hood of the target in the shop, exposing the target to the air. Even Wu Yin himself froze in place, unable to move. He did not know why. It was because the target was a naked man who was tied to a rack in a Jesus pose. There were a few concentric circles drawn on the naked man's body. There was even a number on each circle, which indicated the points that could be obtained if the target was hit. Using a naked man as a target? That was not the real reason why Wu Yin froze. The real reason why Wu Yin froze was that the target's face was his face. Moreover, the position with the highest score, which was 100 points, was in the crotch area. Wu Yan's face was covered in cold sweat. This is Misaka's most precious treasure. Misaka 1003-2 seemed to be touching the target's body lovingly. Incidentally, the place she touched was also the target's crotch. Because it's Oni-sama, Misaka took this treasure out to be our target. Normal people would not be interested in Misaka's treasure. Misaka 1003-2 proudly puffed out her chest. After that, Misaka 1003-2 ignored Wu Yan's sweaty face and walked to Wu Yan's side. Her brown eyes calmly looked at her treasure. Then, Misaka, I'll start first. Misaka 1003-2 stuffed a cork into the muzzle of her toy sniper rifle. She skillfully aimed at the target and calmly pulled the trigger. Bang! With a clear sound of impact, the cork shot out from the toy sniper rifle in Misaka 10,032's hands and accurately hit the target's crotch. From the crisp sound of the collision, it could be heard that if it were any other object, the force of the collision would definitely not be inferior to the force of shot put at full force. Wu Yan's face quickly turned green, from green to red, from red to black, and finally, from white to white. Now, Wu Yan only had one feeling. That was a sharp pain coming from the lower half of his body. Phew! Misaka 1003-2 calmly exhaled. She picked up another cork and stuffed it into the muzzle of her toy sniper rifle. She aimed and fired. Bang! Bang! Misaka 1003-2 fired 2 shots in a row and accurately hit the target's crotch area. It made people feel that her marksmanship was superb. At the same time, there was another point to feel, that was the strength of the sniper rifle. Every shot made the target wobble and almost fall off the shelf. It made people wonder if the 4th shot would blow a hole in the same spot. Looking at the target that looks like him getting hit in the crotch, and with such ferocious force at that, Wu Yan's body trembled and trembled again. Sweat was dripping down his face, and his back was drenched in sweat. Oni-sama, what's wrong? On the side, Misaka 1003-2 calmly put down the toy sniper rifle in her hand. She looked at Wu Yan's trembling body and sweating all over. Is Oni-sama not satisfied with Misaka's marksmanship? Misaka 1003-2 was a bit uneasy. Is my marksmanship not good enough? No. Misaka's sister's marksmanship is very strong. Very strong. So strong that even Wu Yin was scared. Holding the toy sniper rifle in his hand, Wu Yin could clearly feel his facial muscles twitching. His palms were sweating and his whole body was shaking. Misaka's sister had already fired 3 shots, and all 3 shots hit the target with the highest score. She obtained full marks. In other words, if Wu Yin didn't want to lose, he had to hit the target with the highest score all 3 times. But there was only one spot with the highest score. That was the crotch area. Even though he knew it wasn't him, to shoot the crotch area of a target that looked like him, Wu Yin felt that he had to be mentally prepared for the pain. Just like that, Wu Yin held the gun with his face covered in sweat. He didn't dare to pull the trigger. Just like that, at a certain moment, Wu Yan's hand shook and the cork shot out and hit the target. In the chest, bang, the toy sniper rifle in his hand fell to the ground. Wu Yan's face was filled with shock. It's over. Chapter 1564. Nighttime. The sky gradually darkened, and the curtain of night quietly descended. The full moon was clear in the sky. Soft moonlight shone down from the sky and penetrated the barrier of the capital of alternate generations. It shone into this wondrous city that seemed to be a mixture of buildings from different eras, covering the entire capital of alternate generations with a layer of silver gauze. Under the soft moonlight, wind started to blow on the streets where there were windmills. The windmills slowly rotated as if they were providing electricity to the capital of alternate generations. In an instant, all the streets shone with a neither bright nor dim brilliance. These lights were all emitted from the bricks that paved the street itself. Although the bricks that paved the streets of the capital of alternate generations had different styles, different types, and different colors, they were all made of the same type of ore. At night, it would be like a luminous pearl emitting light. In order to obtain these glowing ores, many girls had put in a lot of effort back then. Some went around to inquire about the source of the ores. Some followed the girls to the behemoth forest to search for ores. Some went to the supply town to purchase large quantities of ores. Some even contacted Lulu and Feifei for help. Only then did they obtain enough ores to build the streets of the capital of alternate generations. And the reward for that hard work was the beautiful nightscape of the capital of Otherworld, which could be described as a dream. The streets themselves were emitting a soft radiance that was different from each other, causing the night of the capital of Otherworlds to be set off by a rainbow of colors. It was an extremely beautiful sight. Under such a beautiful night scene, even if they knew it was nighttime, there would still be many who would want to walk on the glowing streets. Even the girls who were slightly used to the night strolled up and down the streets at night to relax. They were admiring the night scene. They were enjoying such an enviable night. The heart of alternate generations, located in the center of the capital of alternate generations, was also shining like the streets. The entire inverted pyramid was shining with a dazzling golden light. It looked like it was made of gold, dazzling to the extreme. Come to think of it, living in such a building should give one a greater sense of achievement than living in a palace, right? Such a night. It was indeed the envy of others. However, despite the envy of others, there was someone who didn't even have the mood to appreciate it. On the top floor of the heart of alternate generations, Wu Yin lowered his head. The background was dark as he walked in from the outside like a zombie. He wobbled his way to the sofa. He fell down, looking like a dying man. That was to be expected. Now, in a place no one else can see, Wu Yin is staring at Wu Yan. He was missing an important piece of underwear. He lost to Misaka 10,032's underwear. Misaka 1032 even asked him to take it off in front of her as the victor so that he wouldn't go back on his word. Thus, with a suicidal mentality, he took off his underwear in front of the street full of Misaka's sisters. He lost to Misaka 10032. Misaka 10032 held his underwear like it was the most precious treasure in the world. Then, she gave all the takoyaki to Wu Yin and walked away expressionlessly. At that moment, Wu Yin felt like something left with Misaka 10032, never to return. Then, the Misaka sisters on the street started to drag Wu Yin to do all sorts of business. They forcefully sold Wu Yin all his clothes and left, leaving behind a naked Wu Yin who was staring blankly at the sky. He didn't move for a long time. Luckily, there were only Misaka sisters in this capital of alternate generations. Luckily, the girls are soaking in the magical lake water, undergoing a transformation. Luckily, Chuju, Mikoto, and Yukari aren't around. Fortunately, the girls left behind a shop that sells men's clothes. Otherwise, Wu Yin felt like there was no reason for him to stay in this capital of alternate generations any longer. Or rather, there's no reason for him to live anymore. I'm an idiot. Wu Yin buried his face in the sofa. He wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Why did you go on the street? Why did you eat takoyaki? Why did you play games? Why didn't you run away? In an instant, a new 100,000 whys came out of Wu Yan's lifeless body and echoed in the living room. His voice was filled with desolation. Not long after, Wu Yan suddenly bounced up and said with a loud voice, "It's okay. Other than the Misaka sisters, no one else knows about it, right? I just want to forget it. Then no one will know about it." "Yes, forget it." Wu Yan lowered his head and tried to hypnotize himself. However, when he lowered his head, a piece of paper on the table entered his sight. "Nice body, keep up the good work." There was a line of words printed on the paper. Wu Yan couldn't recognize the handwriting, but he could guess who it was. Who else could it be other than Yakumo Yukari, who had a gap that allowed her to spy on any place she wanted? "I'm an idiot." Wu Yan collapsed on the sofa again. "Why did I go on the street? Why did I eat takoyaki? Why did I play games? Why didn't I run away?" Wu Yan suddenly heard something amidst his self-deprecation. Outside the hall, the sound of 2 footsteps could be heard. They were sneaking over to the entrance of the hall. "Who is it?" With a gloomy expression, he turned around and looked at the entrance of the hall. What he saw was 2 heads peeking in from the outside, sneakily peeking at the inside of the hall. "Chuju? Makoto?" Wu Yan was even more puzzled. "What are you doing?" "Wah." Hearing Wu Yan's voice, Hinajiku and Makoto, who sneakily peeked their heads in from outside the living room, yelped exaggeratedly. When they saw Wu Yan sitting on the sofa, their expressions stiffened. "Yin." Hinajiku was flustered. You're still awake?" "I don't think she's sleeping anymore." He frowned when he saw how flustered Hinajiku is. "Some of them will finish their metamorphosis later. I want to take them to the 3rd phase of the Demigod Path mission. Chuju, Makoto, how about you 2 stay here?" "No problem." Makoto kept her head peeked out from the sofa while hiding her body outside. "Then hurry up and go." "Didn't I say we need to wait for them to come out?" Wu Yan is puzzled by her answer. "Why are you hiding? Are you shy?" Wu Yan stood up as he spoke. "Stop right there." As soon as Wu Yan stood up, Chuju and Makoto screamed and glared at Wu Yan. "Don't come over here. Sit down." "Huh?" Wu Yan was shocked when he saw Chuju and Makoto's reaction. "What's wrong? Are you sick?" Yes, we're sick." Makoto laughed without thinking. "So don't come over here. You'll get infected. What nonsense are you spouting?" Wu Yan looked straight at Chuju and Makoto. "Have you ever heard of a primogenitor dying from an illness? This is not a normal illness." Hinajika's face twitched as she forced out a smile. "Even a primogenitor would die if they got close. An illness that would kill if they got close." Wu Yan pondered for a moment before smiling. "Yeah, it's so scary." The moment they saw Wu Yan smile, Chuju and Makoto knew something was wrong. Before the 2 girls could react, Wu Yan's body melded into space and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was behind the 2 girls. When he arrived behind the 2 girls and saw the state of their bodies, he was stunned. Chuju and Makoto were still peeking their heads out of the hall. That's why when Wu Yan arrived behind Hinajiku and Makoto, the sight of the 2 girls with their buttocks stuck out in front of him. But that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that the 2 buttocks in front of Wu Yan are completely naked. No, it should be said that Chuju and Makoto are completely naked. Their beautiful bodies are completely exposed to the air. There's nothing covering them. You. Wu Yan was tongue-tied. Wah. Hinajiku and Makoto abruptly turned around and saw Wu Yan's dumbfounded expression. Their pretty faces slowly turned bright red. Chapter 1565. In that instant, the air around them froze. Wu Yan stood face to face with Hinajiku and Makoto, who were completely naked and blushing. Staring at each other, they didn't react for a long time. It's not that Wu Yan hasn't seen Chuju and Makoto naked before. It's just that Wu Yan couldn't comprehend the surreal scene in front of him. Why are they naked? That's the only question in Wu Yan's mind. In this incomprehensible situation, Chuju and Makoto were enraged. No. Their lips trembled and their bodies trembled. In the next second, The two girls raised their fists and punched towards Wu Yan's frozen face. "Didn't I tell you not to come over?" Wu Yan finally reacted when he heard the angry shouts. Looking at the two fists coming at his face, he tilted his head to the side and dodged while taking 2 steps back. "Who knew you two would be like this?" Looking at Chuju and Makoto's embarrassed and angry faces, Wu Yan quickly shook his head. "What's going on? Why did you two come back naked after going out on the streets?" Wu Yan's voice got softer and softer as he spoke. His expression also stiffened slightly. Going out on the streets and coming back naked? Didn't he encounter the same thing just now? Being stripped naked by the Misaka sisters in the capital of alternate generations. Could it be that Chuju and Makoto encountered the same situation? Who knows what's wrong with those guys? Just as this question popped up in his mind, he raised his hand, and Makoto, who was covering her chest with an embarrassed and angry expression, yelled out. We were getting along well at the beginning, but for some reason, she suddenly took out the things she was selling and said that she wanted to change into our clothes. And it's the kind that's forced to sell. Chuju also used her small arms. She covered her fair and delicate body. Her face was filled with disbelief. They kept stuffing things into our bodies and took away our clothes without saying a word. What's wrong with those sisters all of a sudden? Wu Yan laughed dryly, although he didn't know what exactly happened. Based on Chuju and Makoto's words, Wu Yan could roughly guess what happened. It's most likely what Misaka 10032 did to him, and through the Misaka network, all the Misaka sisters in the capital of alternate generations found out. Then, the Misaka sisters followed suit and caused Wu Yan, Chuju, and Makoto to suffer the same fate. Listen up. Makoto glared at Wu Yan and declared to Wu Yan with an unquestionable tone. If you dare tell anyone about what you saw today, I'll electrocute you until you're like a frog. I'll chop you up too. Chuju's yellow-green eyes emitted a dangerous glow. You won't die anyway, so I'll do what I say. After leaving behind these words, Chuju and Makoto didn't even give Wu Yan time to reply. They turned around and ran back to their rooms without looking back. Looking at the two naked girls running back to their rooms, Wu Yan stood there speechless. Chuju and Makoto probably won't be going out on the streets for a while, right? As for the rest of the girls who didn't know anything, if they ran into the streets of the capital of alternate generations without knowing anything, they'll probably be treated the same as us, right? It seems like the Misaka sisters in the capital of alternate generations will turn into dangerous species during this period of time. If we go out on the streets, we'll be stripped naked. That's why it's best if we don't go out on the streets for the time being. After making this decision, Wu Yan turned around and left behind his last words to end this chaos. Speaking of which, why don't you just find a set of clothes from the shops around here? Is there a need to run back naked? Wu Yan won't be able to find an answer to this question. Of course, there was no need for him to rack his brains over this matter. He was the only man in the entire capital of otherworldly beings. If the other girls wanted to run around naked, then let them. He would be the one taking advantage of them anyway. Tap, 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 tap. At this moment outside the hall, a series of light footsteps sounded from afar. It entered Wu Yan's ears and attracted his attention. Wu Yan raised his head and looked at the direction outside the hall. Not long after, his eyes lit up. With light footsteps, two young ladies walked in one after another and appeared in the hall. They're two extremely beautiful girls with extremely hot figures. The one walking in front has long blonde hair that reached her ankles. The ends of her hair were tied into 2 bundles with white ribbons, making her look like a girl with 2 ponytails. The girl was wearing a white blouse, but one of the buttons on her white blouse was pushed open by her voluptuous bosom, faintly revealing a trace of her fair skin. She was wearing a gray short skirt and a pair of brown high-heel boots. It was a simple combination, but made people sigh with admiration that no outfit could be more beautiful than this. Above the girl's ears that were hidden by her long blonde hair, there was a pair of feathered wings that added a bit of cuteness to her beauty. Behind the girl is another girl with long pink hair. Her long pink hair was tied into 2 thin bundles that draped down her back. The hair around her head only reached her shoulders, making it look like she had short hair. This girl also had a pair of accessories that matched her ears. She was wearing a pink spaghetti strap dress. Her smooth shoulders and a pair of white thighs were all exposed in the air. Her chest was also extremely protruding. It was so hot that it made people forget to leave. Astria, level 82. Ikaros, level 83. Like a million summons, two girls so beautiful that even the stars paled in comparison walked into Wu Yan's field of vision. Looking at the two beautiful figures that he had not seen for a long time, even Wu Yan could not help but be moved by their beauty. It was as if he was afraid that he would break this beauty. He did not make a sound and quietly admired this beauty that belonged only to him. At this moment, Ikaros and Astria finally noticed Wu Yan standing not far away. They focused their attention on him. Then, one of them had an uncontrollable ripple in her eyes, while the other cheered with joy. "Master!" Astria leaned forward and stomped on the ground. She leaped forward and pounced on Wu Yan. "You idiot!" Wu Yan, who was still immersed in the sight of the two angelic beauties, was jolted awake by Astria's bold and unrestrained manner. He cursed out loud when he saw her throwing herself at him with all four limbs off the ground. With Astria's current state, if he didn't catch her, she would definitely fall to the ground. Wu Yan didn't care about anything else. He rushed to where Astria landed and caught her in his arms. Ouch! For a moment, Wu Yan thought he heard something soft bouncing. Then he felt an indescribable softness in front of him. From a bystander's point of view, Astria, who threw herself into Wu Yan's embrace, is also pressing her protruding breasts against Wu Yan's body. They're squashed so hard that the soft flesh on the sides of her body almost burst out of her clothes. Wu Yan almost wavered from this indescribable softness. It took him a lot of effort to suppress it. He knocked Astria's head hard. "You idiot! What if you fall?" "Ouch!" Astria hugged her head and squatted on the ground. She complained with tears in her eyes. "Master is the idiot. You big idiot. You silly girl." Wu Yan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Master!" Ikaros slowly walked up to Wu Yan. She stared at Wu Yan with her indigo-colored eyes. Her eyes were filled with a sense of attachment that no one could ever hope to match. Ikaros. Wu Yan's heart melted when he saw the girl who only had eyes for him. He reached out and rubbed Ikaros' head. "I miss you so much." Ikaros tightened her grip on her chest. The attachment in her eyes deepened. Chapter 1566. Soft sunlight poured down from the edge of the sky, sprinkling on every corner of the ground. A gentle breeze blew past, bringing with it the fragrance of the wild grass. On the green field, a patch of green sparkled under the sunlight, setting off the most vibrant color in the world. It was full of vitality, making the mood of those who saw it better. On this boundless field, there was a railroad that seemed to connect the two ends of the world, extending to both sides. It was like a long dragon, undulating in the field. If one were to observe carefully, they would discover that this seemingly endless stretch of railway was extending toward a seemingly bustling city that occupied a large area. At a certain moment, on one end of the railway, a sharp and long whistle resounded, reverberating between heaven and earth. Amidst the sharp and long whistle, a train dashed from the other end of the railway with black smoke rising into the sky. Amidst the rumbling sound of the tires, the train drove towards the bustling city, allowing the very modern city scene to be imprinted in the window. The fields on both sides of the road were moving backward at an extremely fast speed, left behind by the speeding train. Looking at the bustling city through the car window, one could faintly see grayish-white concrete buildings in the bustling city and cars running on the asphalt road. However, compared to the latest cars of the 21st century, these cars gave people a feeling that they were outdated. Yes, not only cars, but also buildings. Although the entire city could indeed be described as bustling, the style would only give people a feeling of being a little backward. Even in many cities, some steam could be seen rising. Using steam? This already felt a little backward. Unfortunately, this backward era is actually a reflection of this world. The train unyieldingly moved in the direction of the city. In one of the carriages of the train, a man and 5 women were looking at the city through the window, chatting happily. Wow! The first to speak was a petite girl with a ponytail, a pair of round red eyes, and a very pretty and cute girl. What a refreshing city. This is the first time I've seen a city like this. I wonder if there's anything fun to do there? Is there an aquarium? Aquarium? You mean a place with a lot of fish? On the side, a blonde girl with a ponytail had her hands pressed against the car window. Her entire face was almost pressed against the glass. For some reason, she revealed a longing look. It sounds delicious. The ponytail girl puffed up her cheeks, dissatisfied. Listen up, Estrella-chan. The fish in the aquarium are not to be eaten. They are to be looked at. If you eat those fish, they will sue you and ask you to pay for it. Sigh. The blonde girl called Estrella looked like a deflated balloon. She slumped down on her seat. I can only look but can't eat. This place is so boring. No matter where it is, the fish in the aquarium are not to be eaten. The ponytail girl put one hand on her waist. She raised her other hand and showed a finger. Estrella-chan, places where you can eat are called restaurants. Places where you can sleep are called hotels. Places where you can drink and party are called taverns. You can order food in these places, but not in other places. Oh, I see. Estrella nodded in realization. She shouted excitedly. Then, Nisha-chan, are there restaurants, hotels, and taverns in that place? Well, Nagisa and Estrella sat by the window and pretended to be educating each other, while Estrella nodded with an expectant look. The rest of the people around them didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You don't know anything about this world. You were just asking about aquariums. Wu Yin shook his head with a chuckle. I wonder why Nagisa has so much to say. Nagisa-chan is also happy to be able to come out. Sitting not far away from Nagisa, a young girl with shoulder-length silver hair appeared on her face. She looked like a tranquil saintess. She had a genuine smile on her face. Even though she was in a deep sleep when she was in teacher's body, Nagisa-chan, who loves excitement, still hopes to come out. Then, what about Cannon? Wu Yin moved his head closer to Cannon. Do you like to come out too? Actually, I can do anything. Cannon smiled shyly and said in an embarrassed voice, as long as I can stay by teacher's side. When she was in your body, Xiao Nagisa was also in high spirits. At this moment, a petite girl sitting next to Cannon, holding a black lace fan and wearing a white goth lowly outfit with a head full of long, straight black hair that was curled up like tornadoes at the ends of her hair. She was fanning herself with her eyes closed and said all of a sudden, after all, we vassal beasts are connected to your consciousness when we're in your body. We can even peek into your memories. Nagisa is very curious about your past. You mean? Wu Yin opened his mouth in shock. He asked with uncertainty. Nagisa, Cannon, and Natsuki, did you all peek into my memories? You didn't say we can't peek into your memories. Natsuki opened one eye and glanced at Wu Yin. Also, when we first became your familiars, we didn't know anything about your past. It's necessary for us to learn more. Wu Yin looked at Nagisa and Cannon. Nagisa was still chatting with Estrella. She didn't seem to hear the conversation. Cannon heard everything. She gave Wu Yin an embarrassed look and admitted it without saying a word. Fine. Wu Yin smiled bitterly. Thank goodness I never did anything wrong. Perhaps. Natsuki closed her eyes again and waved the fan in her hand. Ikaros, have another cup of black tea. Ikaros looked at Wu Yin in a pleading manner. Estrella and Wu Yin sat beside him with a tea set in their hands. How could you casually order around a comrade you've only met for the first time? Wu Yin's bitter smile deepened, but he still rubbed Ikaros' head. Ikaros, I'll have to trouble you to satisfy Natsuki. Yes. Ikaros nodded without hesitation. She poured a cup of black tea and handed it to Natsuki. Natsuki took the black tea as if it was a matter of course. She took a small sip, and her doll-like face relaxed significantly. It's as good as always. It's worth it to be able to taste this kind of black tea whenever I want to become your familiar. You sure are cheap, Wu Yin complained. You're satisfied just because the black tea is good after becoming someone else's possession? Don't forget. Natsuki's blue eyes looked at Wu Yin coldly. Back then, when I became your familiar, you didn't even ask for my opinion. Instead, you forcefully turned me into someone else's thing as you said, this. Wu Yin choked. He didn't know what to say. Natsuki wasn't the only one. Nagisa and Kanon were in the same situation as well. Without any choice, the Yao beast mark turned the girls into familiars and turned them into Wu Yan's familiars. It ignored the owner's wishes and turned them into his familiars. The demonic beast seal, that he still didn't fully understand, was such an extremely dangerous thing. Of course, even if it was very useful, the conditions to make it work were also very harsh. Not only did the user and the target have to be in a state similar to that of a vampire and a familiar, but the target's feelings for the user had to be at a certain level, and they had to be mentally compatible as well. Only when these two conditions are met will the Yao beast mark come into effect. It will turn the target that is compatible with the user's body and mind into a familiar for Wu Yin to command. Due to these harsh conditions, the Yao beast mark hasn't been activated since Wu Yin came out of the Bloodlust Rampage world. In fact, it would be a miracle if Natsuki, Kanon, and Nagisa were able to become Wu Yan's familiars. Chapter 1567. Wu, the long whistle of the train echoed clearly in the surroundings. The rumbling noises of the train gradually decreased, and the speed gradually decreased. The train drove into a dome-shaped station and stopped. Sizzle. Steam rose from various parts of the train, making a sound like water being poured over a flame. At the same time, uniformed station guards came to the surroundings of the train and began to get busy. The doors of the train opened one by one, and the passengers disembarked with their luggage in the midst of the clamor and scattered around the station. Not long after, Wu Yin, Ikaros, Astria, Natsuki, Kanon, and Nagisa got off the train and went to the entrance of the station. However, compared to those who came from afar or came back from afar, this group of people also came from afar, but they didn't bring any luggage. Their hands were empty, and they didn't look like tourists who came to this city for the first time. Instead, they looked like they were here to pick someone up. The six of them stood at the entrance of the station and surveyed the city. This was a city surrounded by steam from top to bottom. The buildings around them were different from the skyscrapers and mansions they were familiar with. They leaned more towards the classical style of a church, and other sacred halls. On the streets, heavy cars that looked like they were popular in the 80s were moving at a speed that Wu Yin and the others thought was slow. There were also carriages that rumbled under the whips of people. The people wore formal clothes. There was no trace of casual wear. It felt like they were back in the past. Backward. This was the first impression Wu Yin, Natsuki, Kanon, and Nagisa had of this city. They used to live in a high-tech world. For Ikaros and Astria, who used to live in Synapse, a place that was centuries ahead of modern society, a place where almost everything could be done with technology, this place was even more backward than they already were. However, in this city, there were scenes that couldn't be found in a normal world. Here, there were bodies with smooth surfaces. They glowed with a cold, steel-like luster. There were human-shaped objects that looked like they were made of iron. There were gears on some parts of them. They could be seen everywhere. There were people selling coffee in small shops along the street. There were people who walked awkwardly and comically. There were people who moved goods and worked slowly. There were also people who walked beside the pedestrians. There were people who helped them with their work. It was a scene that seemed a little inconceivable. In this city, however, it was as if they were living a normal life, mingling in the streets. These humanoid objects were the most special existences in this world. Puppets, to be more precise. It should be called an automaton. It was a puppet that didn't rely on steam, electricity, light, or other energy sources to move. Instead, it relied on magic as the source of power to move. And this kind of automaton, which is different from ordinary people, is also the main combat method in this world. Finally, it feels real. Wu Yin mumbled to himself as he watched the scene of the man and the dolls living together. Smart girl, invincible world. Smart girl, invincible world. This was the dungeon world for the third phase of the demigod quest. This so-called mechanism was actually referring to the automaton. Speaking of the automaton, the root of the automaton is the magic circuit. It is a necessary part of the automaton. It is an invention that replaces magic rituals. The various conditions, complicated incantations, and magic arrays needed to activate magic were simplified to create a circuit that was installed in the body of an automaton. By injecting magic power into it and activating it, the automaton would be controlled and the magic would be performed through the automaton. This method of activating the magic circuit through the automaton is called smart magic. Through the cooperation between the automaton that was equipped with a magic circuit in its body and the puppeteer who controlled the automaton, it performed magic that was different from ordinary tedious and lengthy magic. It was a powerful magic that was unprecedentedly fast and precise. The automaton was created for this purpose. Because of the existence of smart magic, magicians can be freed from the cumbersome magic circles and lengthy incantations. They can borrow the power of the automaton to perform magic quickly. Today, smart magic has become a complete magic system. It is used as the most basic method for magicians to perform magic. It is used in all aspects, including war. Therefore, the necessary prop to perform clever magic, the automaton, became a magic prop that magicians had to equip themselves with. The magician who controls the automaton is called the puppeteer. The puppeteer and the automaton are the main theme of the Smart Girl, Invincible world. The city Wu Yin and the girls are in is the British academic city known as the Smart City, Liverpool. In the center of the city, there is a school that exists for the purpose of smart. This school, it is Wu Yin and the girls' destination. After carefully observing the scenery of the city and the clumsy automaton, Wu Yin couldn't help but look at his wrist. Over there, a silver bracelet was being worn on it, limited bracelet. Similar to the time in the magical girl Ilia world, the path to demigod mission restricted Wu Yan's power. Not only Wu Yin, the two angelic girls who entered the dungeon world with Wu Yin and the familiars who were released after entering the dungeon world are all restricted by the limited bracelet. The suppression from the limited bracelet is even more severe than the one in the magical girl Ilia world. Ikaros, level 69, Astria, level 69, Ikaros and Astria's levels. They are both level 69. They are only at the peak of rank 7. Even vassal beasts like Natsuki, Cannon, and Nagisa were suppressed to level 69, the peak of rank 7. Their power dropped by God knows how many levels. That's not the worst part. The worst part is, Wu Yin is the worst. Character, Wu Yin equipment points, 11110, 0 item points, 20000, ability points, 10100, 0 summoning points, 131000 level, 0. That's right, level 0. In other words, Wu Yan's current level is the same as a normal person's. Of course, level doesn't represent everything. Wu Yin can't be like a weak scholar just because his level is suppressed to 0. His combat power can't even be considered as trash. However, he is still down to 5. This was because not only was his level suppressed to 0, the powerful physical abilities he obtained from the body of the true ancestor were also suppressed to the point where he was no stronger than a normal person. His superpower is also restricted. He can use the spells in the 103,000 grimoires, but he is restricted to the same level as the magicians of this world. He has to chant long incantations and use complicated magic formations to cast them. Other than infinite armaments, the only thing Wu Yin isn't restricted is his boundless mana and true ancestor's immortal life force. However, with infinite armaments, Wu Yin is only strong in terms of technique. His physical strength is also restricted. He has techniques, but no physical strength. He is still weak. According to the system, Wu Yin must be like the puppeteers in this world. His main combat method is to control his automaton. Ikaros, Astria, Natsuki, Cannon, and Nagisa are Wu Yan's automaton. Similar to Wu Yin, the five girls aren't just restricted by their levels. Like the automaton of this world, they need to rely on their master's mana to activate their magic circuits, perform their magic, and engage in combat. Of course, the girls don't have any magic circuits. However, if they were to participate in a battle, they would need Wu Yan's mana to execute their moves. In other words, without Wu Yan's mana, the girls are no different from normal humans. They can't fight at all. This is why the restrictions in this world are so severe. That's why Wu Yin released Natsuki, Kanon, and Nagisa while bringing Ikaros and Astria with him. He's afraid that Ikaros and Astria won't be able to hold their own against a strong foe under such circumstances. Chapter 1568. Currently, all of the spells in the 103,000 grimoires were restricted by the bracelet, requiring complicated magic circles and lengthy incantations to be used. It was impossible for them to be used in a real battle. Their superpowers and physical abilities that came from the true ancestor were directly suppressed, and they could not even use them. Wu Yin couldn't even use his red jade mode and familiars. Natsuki, Kanon, and Nagisa were released because Wu Yin released them the moment he arrived in this world. However, the three girls were also restricted by the bracelet. To put it simply, other than infinite arms refinement, all of Wu Yan's other means of combat are restricted. Under these circumstances, Wu Yan's combat power with infinite arms refinement is only equivalent to that of a Tier 4 or 5 fighter. He can reach Tier 6 with his mana boost, but that's about it. Fortunately, there were no restrictions on the items. Wu Yin could still use the Gate of Babylon, Shana, Meteor Shower, and the other treasures in the Gate of Babylon. With these, it shouldn't be too difficult for him to go against an ordinary automaton. It shouldn't be a problem for him to defeat a weaker automaton. However, it would not work for the more powerful automaton. That's why, when it comes to high-level battles, Wu Yin still has to rely on the girls who are limited to his automaton and let them do the dirty work. One has to say, with these restrictions in place, Wu Yin can be considered a half-baked puppeteer. Why half-baked puppeteer? It was very simple. A true puppeteer needed to have a certain degree of control over their automaton, and the level of use of clever magic would directly affect the combat power of the automaton. Wu Yin didn't know any of these. How could he control his automaton to a certain extent? Ikaros, Astria, Natsuki, Kanon, and Nagisa could all fight on their own. There was no need for Wu Yin to control them. Mastery of magic? Wu Yin hadn't even touched a real automaton before. He didn't even try to control a normal automaton. This was his first time coming to a world where the automaton girls couldn't get hurt. He didn't know anything other than the theory behind the automaton magic. What kind of level was that? Therefore, as a puppeteer, Wu Yin didn't have any other skills other than infusing his automatons with mana so that they could fight. It could be said that he was completely unqualified. Because of this, Wu Yin decided to come to this mecha city. Other than completing the third phase of the demigod quest, Wu Yin is also interested in the fighting style of a real puppeteer. He wants to learn how to control puppets and how to use them in magic. How interesting, while Wu Yin was observing the city, the girls are doing the same. Nagisa's red eyes were glowing. It's just as Sensei said, there are a lot of automatons that can move around. They're just like the automatons on Itagami Island. Why aren't they armed? Doesn't an automaton have to fight as well? Automatons that can fight only have built-in magic circuits and magic. These automatons only have basic functions that allow them to move around. Wu Yin patted Nagisa's head. If the streets were filled with automatons that can fight, this place would be in chaos. Automatons that can use magic aren't something those metal lumps on Itagami Island can compare. Natsuki raised her parasol with one hand and placed the other on her waist. Looks like this world is more interesting than I thought. I wonder how powerful the automatons are. Wu Yin scratched his cheek. I really want to know how powerful I am right now. If we're talking about automatons, I'm sure you're the worst. Natsuki didn't hold back. If we're talking about automatons, I'm still waiting to see how powerful they are. Why don't you just tell me you don't know how powerful you are in this world? Wu Yin pursed his lips. Well, it's only a matter of time before I find out. Hey, master. Astria held her stomach and looked at Wu Yin with a pitiful expression. I'm hungry fine. Wu Yin shook his head. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Then let's go to the academy first and settle the matter before we talk about it, yes. Astria and Nagisa beamed with joy. Ikaros and Kana nodded. The lively and cheerful duo attracted a lot of attention. As for Natsuki, she was neither quiet nor moving. She was neither lively nor cheerful, but she was neither quiet nor beautiful. She was somewhere in between, and one could only say that she was very delicate and cute. Under Wu Yan's lead, the group passed through the streets filled with people and dolls. They headed towards the center of the city that is filled with steam. Walpurgis Royal Mechanical Academy. Located in the heart of Liverpool, the ingenious city, it was a world-renowned ingenious academy known as the greatest academy in a magic world. It was like a palace standing in the center of the city. It occupied a vast area, and its scale was so large that it reminded people of a real palace. Its architectural style reminded people of the Buckingham Palace. From the front, the Walpurgis Royal School of Mechanics looked like an awe-inspiring royal palace. The walls were like the walls of a castle. They were about 5 meters tall, and there were some stone spikes at the top. If one were to look carefully, they would discover that there were some black muzzles on the academy's gate. These guns aren't for decoration. They're loaded with real bullets. That said, their purpose was not to defend against external enemies. Instead, they were used to stop those who were trying to escape. This so-called fugitive didn't refer to any prisoners locked up in the academy, but the automaton of the students in the academy. The Walpurgis Wanli Robotics Academy had a clear rule that any student who had not graduated from the academy would not be allowed to leave the academy with their automaton while they were still in school. As for the automaton carried by the students in the school, if they left the school without permission during the school period, they would be mercilessly sniped by these pitch-black gun muzzles. For the puppeteer, it was an academy, but for the automaton, it was a prison. So big, Astria and Nagisa's jaws dropped as they looked at the unbreakable fortress in front of them. Is everything ready? Standing in the middle of the group of girls, Wu Yin glanced at them. After entering this academy, you won't be able to come out for a short period of time. Nagisa grumbled unhappily. Nagisa wants to explore the city. Can't an automaton leave the academy as it pleases? Natsuki raised her head and looked at the pitch-black muzzles on top of the castle-like academy. She pursed her lips. It's meaningless to me. Wu Yin paused for a moment before he shrugged, as if he recalled something. I almost forgot that you're the famous witch of space. You're the best at manipulating space. This wall and those guns are nothing to you at all. Sensei Minamiya. Nagisa hugged Natsuki's arm and said with a hopeful expression, If you have the time, you have to bring me out to play. Everyone burst into laughter when they heard that. Chapter 1569. The Walpurgis Royal Mechanic Academy was publicly recognized as the best academy in a magic world. It was at the top of the ivory tower in this era where magic tricks were prevalent. Of course, such a high-end academy would have a very high threshold. To others, the entry requirements were already harsh to the point of being harsh. It was fine for those who had excellent academic ability and were rich, as long as they paid a fee that satisfied the Walpurgis Royal Tactical Academy. They would be able to enroll. However, for those who had excellent academic ability but did not have any financial backing, it was a difficult situation. Although it was a little realistic, the entrance fee of the Walpurgis Royal Tactical Academy was shockingly high. It was impossible for an ordinary family to pay this fee. Only those nobles and powerful forces could afford this fee. Therefore, if those without much wealth wanted to enter the Walpurgis Royal Mechanic Academy, they could only go out and find sponsors who could pay for their tuition. For example, the military, the corporations, the churches, the corporate alliances of various countries. These existences were very willing to be the financial support for excellent puppet users. After all, a powerful puppet user could bring about combat power. It was comparable to a small army. Therefore, in this world, almost every country's military would do their best to find those outstanding puppeteers. Cultivating puppeteers had also become the most important thing for every country. Under such circumstances, it was definitely worth it to spend a bit of money to get an excellent puppet user to join his side. Of course, if one wanted the military, corporations, churches, and corporate alliances of various countries to provide financial support for an unrelated person, the puppet user would have to show the corresponding ability. In other words, if one did not have the ability to impress these sponsors, one would not be able to enter the Walpurgis Royal Mechanic Academy. Then, one could only rely on one's own ability to pay for the expensive tuition. In terms of ability to be a puppet user, Wu Yin was very bad. Very bad. Regardless of whether it was theoretical knowledge or actual combat control of the automaton, it was a skill that could be used to control the automaton. The method and experience of performing magic tricks. Wu Yin could be said to have none at all, if he had to find a sponsor to provide him with financial support. If he didn't take into account Ikaros, Astria, Natsuki, Kanon, Nagisa, and the others, Wu Yin wouldn't have been able to pull this off. However, unfortunately, Wu Yin isn't someone who's short on money. Sorry, Wu Yin smashed a bag filled with at least 100 gold coins on the table in front of him and said with a smile on his face. The staff member of Walpurgis Wang Li Academy had a dumbfounded expression on his face. Wu Yin smashed a bag full of gold coins on the table in front of him. I want to enroll. Enter the school. The staff member couldn't react in time for a long time. When he came back to his senses, he quickly adjusted his glasses to cover up his gaffe. It couldn't be helped. Although it wasn't like no one had come to the Walpurgis Wang Li Academy to enroll in the past, those students were only here to sign up. They wouldn't bring any tuition fees with them. The tuition fees of the Walpurgis Wang Li School of Engineering are too expensive. If you use paper money, you need to fill up at least 2 large boxes. It's unrealistic to carry money around with you. Therefore, generally speaking, when a student was admitted, the faction behind the student or the sponsor behind the student would first pay the tuition fee in advance. Then, the student would bring their personal information to report and apply for admission. Wu Yin came to the registration counter and applied for admission with a bunch of gold coins. This is the first time in the history of the Walpurgis Wang Li School of Engineering. No wonder the staff member was dumbfounded. After lifting the heavy bag and putting it aside, the staff member respectfully handed Wu Yin an application form. Please fill in your personal information here. Wu Yin nodded slightly, but when he saw one of the lines on the application form, he frowned. Do I still need to fill in the information of my automaton as well? Yes. The staff member pushed up his glasses and answered. This is because once you enter the school, your automaton will not be able to leave the campus until you graduate. We need to have the information of your automaton so that we can identify it easily. In other words, we have to register the person we need to monitor. It's like applying to enter a prison, isn't it? Wu Yin took a deep look at the staff member before turning around to the girls behind him. Natsuki glanced at Wu Yin and she nodded nonchalantly. As the representative of the girls, she agreed to this arrangement. All right. Wu Yin shrugged and tapped his cheek with a pen. He rolled his eyes and started to fill in his automaton information. Automaton Natsuki Minamiya. Magic circuit, space manipulation, able to manipulate space as one pleases. Automaton Akaros. Magic circuit, wave barrier, able to create a barrier by vibrating the atmosphere. Automaton Agirola. Magic circuit, freezing cold fog, the ability to generate cold air on its own, condense cold ice, and control cold air and ice. Automaton Hanace Natsuan. Magic circuit, boost healing. No matter how serious the injury is, it can be healed in a short period of time, allowing the target to return to their full state. Automaton Astria. Magic circuit particle sword. Controls particles to form a laser lightsaber. You can freely control the changes of particles, enlarging or shrinking the laser lightsaber. After filling up the form, Wu Yin ignored the weird looks from the girls behind him and handed the form to the staff member with a nonchalant expression. Is this good enough? Yes, sir. After the staff member glanced at it slightly, he put the form in his hand into an envelope and sealed it. Automaton is related to the combat power of the puppeteer. We will only show your form to the guards at the entrance. We will not show it to anyone else. Don't worry. The staff member handed a key to Wu Yan. Tomorrow, we will have an academic test. After participating in the test, the invigilator will arrange your ranking and dormitory in the academy according to your results. Before that, please go to the guest courtyard and make do for the night. Got it. Wu Yan accepted the key and turned around to look at the girls. Let's go. Leaving those words behind, Wu Yan led the girls away from the scene under the watchful eyes of the staff members. Sensei, on a certain street in the academy, Nagisa complained as she followed Wu Yan's footsteps. Why did you write Agrora's name when you filled in the form? Nagisa was supposed to be by your side too, wasn't she? But you're not good at fighting, are you? Wu Yan flicked Nagisa's head. When it's time to fight, Agrora will still have to fight. That's true. Nagisa clutched her head and muttered, unable to let go of the memory. In the end, only Nagisa was left out. I'm not happy about it. Nagisa is Agrora. Agrora is Nagisa. Wu Yan rubbed Nagisa's head. If you separate from Agrora so clearly, that girl will be sad. Nagisa's expression changed for the better when she heard this. You're right. Nagisa and Agrora are one. Speaking of which, I can't believe you came up with so many magic circuits. Natsuki shook her head. If that's the case, we can't use abilities other than the ones you submitted, right? It's just a cover. Wu Yan shrugged. When it's necessary, don't be shy, ouch. Before the word angry could be uttered, a cry of pain entered everyone's ears. Chapter 1570. Ouch. At the same time, Nagisa, who was walking backwards in front of Wu Yan, also cried out and fell to the ground. That was because one of them collided with Nagisa, who was walking backwards. Nagisa's cry and the other person's cry of pain sounded at the same time. Immediately after, the two of them were pushed to the side by the force of the collision. Nagisa. Seeing Nagisa falling towards him, Wu Yan quickly caught her in his arms. Pong. However, the other person wasn't so lucky. He sat on the ground with a loud thud. It hurts. Suddenly, a painful groan reverberated from the ground, attracting everyone's attention. Wu Yan and Ko saw a girl with slightly dull but extremely beautiful blonde hair that reached her waist sitting on the ground. Wu Yan and Ko caught sight of her. It was a girl who seemed to be around 16 or 17 years old. Her figure couldn't be considered petite, but it wasn't voluptuous either. It could only be said that her proportions were very balanced. The girl was wearing the uniform of the Walpurgis Wong, Lee Machine Learning Academy. She was wearing a white shirt with a black vest that revealed her chest and a gray skirt. He was wearing high boots, a blue beret with red ribbons on his head, and a blue necktie that looked like a scarf. It seemed like he was a senior student of the Walpurgis Royal Tactical Academy. Her upright appearance, coupled with her long golden hair that fluttered in the wind, made the girl look like a fairy. Her entire body was blooming with a dazzling and seductive light. Without a doubt, this was a beautiful girl. However, at this moment, this beautiful young girl had a pained expression on her face. She was stroking her little butt with one hand, making her seductive beauty look a little weak. It was obvious. This girl, she had collided with Nagisa, the one who cried out in pain. I am sorry. Nagisa, who fell into Wu Yan's arms, seemed to have thought of this. She ran to the girl in a panic. It's all my fault. I didn't look ahead. I was walking backwards. I'm really sorry. You. The girl raised her head and looked at Nagisa with obvious displeasure. She wanted to reprimand her, but when she saw the tears in Nagisa's eyes, she closed her mouth and turned her head away. Forget it. Are you all right? At this moment, a deep voice that sounded like the voice of an old sage came from the girl's side. Wu Yan and the rest noticed a dragon flying in the air beside the girl. Yes, it was a dragon. Other than dragon, there was no other adjective that could be used to describe this animal that was flying beside the girl. Its entire body was as cold as steel, and its head was like that of a crocodile or a lizard. There was a pair of sharp horns at the top of its head, but its face was not so ferocious. Instead, it looked somewhat noble and dignified. There were two pairs of wings on its back, which were stacked on top of each other. Its shape was not like that of an ordinary dragon, which had fleshy wings. Instead, it had butterfly-like wings, which made this dragon look more delicate than ferocious. Unfortunately, such an exquisite dragon was only the size of an ordinary cat. It was like a toy doll that could fly. It was extremely eye-catching. Whoa! Nagisa's red eyes lit up when she saw the dragon. So cute. See you cute? The dragon with the voice of an old sage stiffened slightly. Perhaps this was the first time it was praised as cute. Don't compare my Sigmund to those dolls that can be associated with cute. The girl glared at Nagisa. Nagisa shrunk her neck and hid behind Wu Yen. This seemingly beautiful girl in front of him didn't seem to have a good temper. Hey! Astria stood up for Nagisa and yelled, "Don't you dare bully Sister Nagisa." Sister? The girl looked at the petite Nagisa with a strange expression. Then, she looked at Astria with a pair of voluptuous breasts that almost burst out of her clothes. She looked at Nagisa with pity. No matter if you look at it from side to side, up to left or right, Astria should be the older sister, right? Unfortunately, Astria was an idiot. Basically, anyone with a higher IQ than Astria could be her elder sister. For Astria, the talkative Nagisa was like an elder sister to her. That was why Astria kept calling Nagisa her elder sister. Nagisa was happy to hear that and naturally became Astria's elder sister. The oblivious girl pushed herself up from the ground and glared at Astria with a displeased expression. Get this straight. She's the one who knocked me down. But Sister Nagisa already apologized, didn't she? Astria glared at the girl angrily. You're bullying her by yelling at her. I'm bullying her. What do you want? The girl got angry too. She looked at the group and mocked. You look like freshmen. What's wrong? Did they think that they would have more confidence just because they had more people? Astria screamed in anger. There won't be more people. I can handle this alone. Oh, the girl's sapphire-like eyes turned cold. She raised her hand, and the little dragon named Sigmund flew up and stood on top of her. Are you trying to challenge me to a duel? Astria. Just as Astria was about to take advantage of her anger to make the situation worse, Wu Yin spoke up. Come back, master. Astria glanced at Wu Yin and backed away unwillingly. Master. The girl didn't notice Wu Yin until now. She looked at Wu Yin with a surprised expression. She asked Astria with a doubtful look on her face. You called a master? Could it be that you're his automaton? What's an automaton? Astria tilted her head. A question mark floated above her head. I'm master's all-purpose combat. Ugh. Before Astria could finish her sentence, Wu Yin covered her mouth and stopped her from speaking further. She's my automaton. Wu Yin grinned at the girl without batting an eyelid. It's not just her. The person who bumped into you, as well as the rest of the people here, are all my automatons. They're all your automatons? The girl froze on the spot. Whether it was Nagisa, Astria, Ikaros, Natsuki, Kanon, or the others, they all looked like real humans. In this city that was known as the Smart City, there were many automatons. It was not that the girl had never seen humanoid automatons before, but automatons that were as lifelike as the 5 girls in front of her were rare. After all, to most people, the impression of an automaton was still a mechanical form with gears and steel exposed to the outside. The girl has seen a lot of things, but she has never seen an automaton as lifelike as this one. It was also the first time the girl couldn't recognize the automaton. It's all because of your automaton. After mumbling like she was sleep-talking, the girl glanced at Natsuki and the other girls. You actually brought 5 automatons with you? Don't tell me that you can control 5 automatons to fight at once. Who knows? Wu Yin shrugged. That's what I'm talking about. Wu Yin shrugged. By the way, can you bring me to the Academy's guest room? Huh? Chapter 1571. In the Valpurgis Royal Mechanical Academy campus, there's a street that runs through the north and south of the Academy. This large street is the main street of the Walpurgis Royal Mechanical Academy. Not only does it connect the north and south of the academy, it also connects to the various classrooms, dormitories, and cafeterias. Therefore, once it was time for lunch break, this main street would be packed to the brim with students who wanted to go to various places in the academy, and it would be extraordinarily lively. Fortunately, it is not time for lunch break, and the busy time has passed. The sky is slightly yellow, and night is about to fall. At this time, the students should be in their dormitories, right? Even so, there are still a few scattered people on the main street. This small group of people was now making way for the main street in a panic. They gathered on both sides of the main street and looked ahead with fear in their eyes. In their field of vision, a young girl with flowing blonde hair and a delicate little dragon on her beret is slowly walking over with a boy and 5 girls. With the arrival of the young lady, the people on the main street all split into 2 halves, making way for her. Their gazes towards the young lady were filled with fear and dread, as if they were not looking at a human, but a demon. They were almost trembling. Of course, under these circumstances, the gazes of the surrounding students turned strange and curious as they looked at the 5 women following behind the young girl. Ooh, who are those people? They are not wearing the academy uniform. Are they new students? What guts! He actually dares to follow behind that tyrant treks. Whispers began to spread from the surroundings and into the ears of Wu Yin and company. Hearing the whispers, Wu Yin and Natsuki, who was walking behind the girl, looked at each other. One of them found it funny and the other surprised. Then, as if he had casually brought it up, he looked around the topic and started talking about it. You seem to be quite famous in this academy. That is why you dare to ask me to lead the way for you. I really don't understand. The girl didn't turn her head and looked away. She glanced at Wu Yin and said coldly, "Aren't you afraid that I will cut you into pieces?" "Cut me into pieces?" Wu Yin raised an eyebrow. "Looks like not only are you famous, you are also very confident in your own strength. You just entered the academy. You don't even know who I am. Yet, you dare to touch me. Your confidence is the one that's surprising and funny at the same time." The girl bluntly spat out harsh words. Her tone was also filled with displeasure. "Do you really think that you're a powerhouse just because you have 5 automatons?" According to the performance of the automaton and the strength of the magic circuit, the difference in strength between 2 automaton and the automaton was very obvious. However, ingenious magic was through the automaton controlled by the puppeteer to fight. No matter how outstanding the performance of an automaton was, no matter how powerful the magic circuit was, if the puppeteer was not good enough, the combat power that the automaton could unleash would be very limited. In this academy, it was not that there were no powerful automatons, but because the puppeteer was not good enough, there were many situations where they were covered in dust. Therefore, each country paid more attention to the puppeteer instead of developing a more powerful automaton. The girl didn't know the performance of Wu Yan's automaton and what the magic circuit was, but the girl was a little concerned about the ability of Wu Yan's puppeteer. Automaton relied on the magic power provided by the puppeteer to survive. Without the magic provided by the puppeteer, the automaton was just a piece of trash no matter how powerful it was. The more powerful the automaton was, the higher the magic required and the puppeteer's control skills were required. And of course, even if the automaton wasn't that powerful, once the number of automatons increased, the magic required and the puppeteer's control skills would be higher as well. Because of this, a puppeteer would normally only be equipped with a single automaton. They would invest all of their mana and manipulation skills into the automaton, fully unleashing the power of the automaton. In this way, even if there was surplus magic, the automaton's combat time could be effectively extended. Those who were equipped with multiple automatons at the same time either had incomparably powerful magic and control skills that could unleash the full power of multiple automatons, or they were an idiot. After all, controlling multiple automatons meant that one had to provide magic evenly to every automaton, and they had to split their attention to control them. The difficulty wasn't as simple as 1 + 1. If one didn't provide enough magic to the automaton and didn't have powerful control skills to control the automaton, In the end, not only would the combat time be very short, they wouldn't be able to unleash the full power of each automaton. What was such a person if not an idiot? What the girl was concerned about was whether the freshman before her was a truly powerful puppeteer or an idiot. The girl would never have thought that Wu Yan's automaton could fight on its own without him controlling it. Therefore, as a puppeteer, Wu Yan's mastery of magic was extremely bad. He was even worse than a newbie. As for magic, Wu Yan didn't have much but magic. Not to mention an automaton. He had more than enough magic power to provide an army's automaton with magic power. Only I know if I'm strong or not. Wu Yan's lips curled up in response to the girl's sarcastic but probing words. As for whether my automaton is strong or not, I'm the only one who knows. Humph. The girl paused for a moment before she snorted and continued walking. No matter what, you better not piss me off. Otherwise, I don't care if you and your automaton are strong or not. I will not hesitate to chop you into pieces. Nagisa and Estrella showed obvious dissatisfaction when they heard the girl's words. Kanon consoled them by pulling their hands. Only Natsuki and Ikaros remained expressionless. They looked like real automatons who followed their master's orders. Not long after, a rather luxurious courtyard appeared in front of the group. That's where the Academy's guests are staying. The girl stopped and waved her hand at Wu Yan like she was swatting a fly. There are many rooms inside, but the room number is engraved on your key. Go find it yourself. After saying that, the girl turned around and walked in another direction with the little dragon on her head. That little girl, although her mouth was merciless, in the end, she still brought us here. Only then did Nayu lazily open her mouth. Surprisingly, she's a nice brat. She's just a little clumsy. Yeah. Wu Yan looked at the girl's back, and after a while, he yelled out, "Hey, what's your name?" The girl stopped and stood there for a long time without responding. After a while, she turned around with a provocative yet joyful smile on her face. "Charlotte? Birao. Don't forget the name that might chop you into pieces." After saying that, the young girl left without looking back. Chapter 1572. The Walpurgis Royal Mechanic Academy was the best academy in the magic world. Usually, guests from all over the world would come to the academy as a guest, which was a common occurrence. For the sake of these guests who came from afar, there was a courtyard within the Walpurgis Royal Tactical Academy that was specially used to entertain these guests and allow them to stay in it. The courtyard took up more space than the average dormitory and was mainly divided into 3 floors. The first floor was for the ordinary guests to live in. The second floor was for the distinguished guests from all over the world to live in. On the third floor, there were luxurious suites for the royal family and the nobles, as well as those who had extraordinary statuses and great backgrounds. Students like Wu Yan who came to register but hadn't been assigned a dormitory would sometimes be arranged to live in this courtyard for a period of time. Naturally, Wu Yan had no affinity with the luxurious suites provided to the royal family. The royal family, the aristocrats, 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 and the like. Before tomorrow's test, Wu Yan would live in the dormitory on the first floor of the courtyard. Although it was called a dormitory, the courtyard that was specially used to entertain guests naturally couldn't be shabby. Therefore, when Wu Yan used the key to open the door, when they entered the dormitory, what appeared in front of the group of 6 was a room that was very different from an ordinary dormitory. The area was about the size of 2 or 3 rooms of an ordinary dormitory, with a built-in bed that was enough to lie down 3 people. There was a round table in the middle, and the surrounding walls were full of decorations, including potted plants, vases, and counters. There was a window at the front, and outside the window, there was a small open platform. The platform was planted with flower beds, and when the breeze blew, it could clearly bring a fragrance. The whole room was filled with a fragrance. It made people feel refreshed. For the level of the dormitory, it was quite luxurious. This kind of environment couldn't be said to be too good, but it definitely couldn't be said to be bad. At least, even Natsuki, who was quite demanding in all aspects, eased her delicate doll-like face when she saw this dormitory. Thinking about it, he was quite satisfied. Oh my! Nagisa and Estrella cheered. They jumped onto the soft bed in the dorm and dove right into it. With a face full of happiness, she rubbed against the quilt. So comfortable, master. Ikaros followed closely behind Wu Yen. She took out a tea set and made a cup of black tea. Please have some tea. Thank you, Ikaros. Wu Yen ruffles Ikaros's hair. Under Ikaros's joyful gaze, he picks up the teacup and takes a sip. Minami-sensei. Kanon poured a cup of black tea and handed it to Natsuki. Please have some tea too. Thank you, Kanon. Natsuki thanked her and took the teacup. She fanned herself with a lace fan while sipping her tea. She spoke casually. Now that we've arrived at Ingenious City and the admission procedures have been completed, your path to demigod mission should begin, right? Wu Yen, who sat across from Natsuki, paused. He placed the teacup on the table and shook his head. No, I have to wait until I'm officially enrolled in the school and can participate in the classes of the Walpurgis Wanli Machine Learning Academy if I want to proceed with the third round of the Demigod Path mission. Wu Yen waved his hand in the air. Instantly, a list that no one other than Wu Yen and the girls could see appeared on the screen. Wu Yen clicked on the Demigod Path, and the details of the third phase of the Demigod Path quest appeared on the screen. Special Mission, Path to Demigod Mission Phase. Third Phase Mission World. Ingenious Girl won't get hurt. Mission details. Obtain the magic circuit. Eve's Heart X100000. Beep. This is the Path to Demigod Special Mission. The original mission has been cancelled. Only after completing the third phase of the Path to Demigod mission can the user choose to leave the dungeon. Reminder, the time ratio between the real world and the dungeon world is 100. 1. The user can train in the dungeon without any worries. Have a good time. The so-called automaton referred to those puppets that were equipped with magic circuits in their bodies, allowing the puppeteer who controlled the automaton to inject magic power into them to activate the magic circuits and perform magic quickly. In this world, a magic circuit represented a magic trick. A magic circuit was a ritual substitute for magic. In short, it was like a lamp. Inject electricity into the lamp and it would glow. Inject mana into the circuit and the magic trick would be automatically generated. The puppeteer would then be able to control the automaton and perform the magic trick quickly. However, according to the basic principles of ingenious physics, it was impossible for a single person to have two types of magic tricks. This principle was called the principle of incompatibility of magic activity. It was because of this principle that, in general, an automaton could only be equipped with one type of magic circuit and perform one type of magic trick. In other words, if a magic circuit was installed in the body of an automaton, then this automaton was equivalent to being finalized. In the future, it could only use the magic generated by this magic circuit. However, there was a magic circuit that was special. Eve's Heart. That was the magic circuit that represented life. The reason why the automaton used by the puppeteers had a personality and intelligence was because of the magic circuit of Eve's Heart. Therefore, every automaton was equipped with a magic circuit that represented life and wisdom. Eve's Heart. Only Eve's Heart could be an exception that did not abide by the principle of incompatibility of magic activity and coexisted with another magic circuit that could perform magic tricks in the automaton's body. Because Eve's Heart could bring true life to an automaton. Eve's Heart was like a human's heart. It was the foundation of all automatons. If an automaton was injured, it could be repaired through various channels. However, once Eve's Heart was damaged, then the automaton would never be able to recover and could only be abandoned. The target item of Wu Yan's third round of the Demigod Path mission was this magic circuit that could bring life, Eve's Heart. On top of that, there were 1 million Eve's Hearts. In other words, if Wu Yan wanted to complete his third round of the Demigod Path mission, he had to kill a total of 1 million automaton and obtain their hearts. This was not a joke. Eve's Heart was the life of an automaton. With it, the automaton could move freely like a human. Killing 1 million automatons? What was the difference between that and killing 1 million humans? Besides, it was impossible for others to ignore the fact that he had killed so many automatons. It would definitely cause all kinds of trouble. Therefore, after much consideration, Wu Yin decided to study at the Walpurgis Academy. It was all for the sake of learning how to create the magic circuit Eve's Heart from here. If he could learn the technique to create Eve's Heart, then Wu Yin could create 1 million Eve's Hearts by himself. He would not need to spend so much effort to kill 1 million automaton. Eve's Heart was the foundation for the creation of an automaton. There must be a way to create it in the academy. Chapter 1573. In fact, compared to the Walpurgis Royal Mechanical Academy, the highest academy in the magical world, those mechanical workshops that specialized in the production, research, and development of magic circuits and automaton would definitely have the manufacturing method of Eve's Heart. Although Eve's Heart was a magic circuit that could bring life, it was also the foundation of automaton. It was the most common magic circuit. In terms of price, Eve's Heart was cheaper than any other magic circuit. Therefore, if he could sneak into a workshop, it shouldn't be too difficult to come into contact with Eve's Heart and obtain its manufacturing method. On the other hand, the Walpurgis Royal Mechanical Academy not only required expensive tuition fees, there were also all kinds of disputes. It was hard to guarantee that he wouldn't be involved in any troublesome matters. As a choice, it was undoubtedly not suitable. But Wu Yin still chose to come to the Walpurgis Royal Mechanical Academy to obtain the method to create Eve's Heart. Not for other reasons, but because the Walpurgis Royal Mechanical Academy was the stage where the original plot unfolded in the world of Smart Girl Will Not Get Hurt. Although there would be a lot of trouble and disputes here, the advantage was that Wu Yin at least knew about the Walpurgis Royal Mechanical Academy and also knew about some of the inside stories here, including the original plot. Compared to those workshops that he was unfamiliar with, the Walpurgis Royal Mechanical Academy was more suitable for Wu Yin to move around. Besides, the tuition fees that were extremely expensive in the eyes of others were just something that Wu Yin could casually throw away. He didn't feel any heartache or even care about it. Therefore, choosing the Walpurgis Wang Liji Academy was a good choice in many aspects. A magic circuit that can bring life. A hint of interest appeared on Natsuki's delicate face. What kind of magic is it? Although magic that can bring life and intelligence to an existence like automaton is high-end, it's not that rare. Wu Yin put away the system list. He shrugged his shoulders. Compared to being able to truly create life, it's better to be able to do so. Or rather, those human magic tricks, Eve's Heart, is only at the magical level. Only someone like you, who has an endless supply of spells, can say something like that. Natsuki glanced at Wu Yin. At least, back on Itagami Island, I've never heard of any magic that could bring life and intelligence to a puppet. But Itagami Island also has artificial life forms and clones, right? Wu Yin scratched his cheek. Things that magic can't do. However, technology could easily achieve this. Wasn't there an existence like artificial intelligence? Automaton is a life form similar to artificial intelligence with a body, isn't it? Let's not talk about clones for now. Artificial life forms are demons. Na Yu smacked Wu Yan's head with her fan. To think that you used to be an offensive mage on Itagami Island. Did he even forget about this? Wu Yan rubbed his head and laughed dryly. Then, he recalled something and looked at Nagisa. Speaking of demons, Nagisa, the automaton shouldn't trigger your fear of demons, right? It's fine. Nagisa was lying on the soft bed with her chin resting on her hands. Her little feet were propped up and swinging back and forth. Her adorable eyes were bright as she spoke in a cheerful tone. Nagisa still doesn't understand what an automaton is. Strictly speaking, it's just a puppet that can move on its own, right? That's right. Then it's fine. It's just a puppet. Nagisa isn't afraid of it. Plus, Nagisa suddenly pounced on Astria. Astria is also an artificial angel. Nagisa isn't afraid of it. I'm not an artificial angel. Astria pinched Nagisa's cheeks and said angrily, "She's an omnipotent angel. It's the same, it's the same. It's not the same. Najishine-chan is an idiot." Ikaros, Wu Yin, Natsuki, and Kanon laughed helplessly as they watched Nagisa and Astria tussle on the bed. It doesn't matter if we understood automaton or not. Now that the system has imposed restrictions on us, other than suppressing our strength, it's going to make us the same as an automaton, right? Natsuki raised her hand that was wearing the limited bracelet and glanced at it. During battle, I have to rely on the puppet user to provide me with mana. Every method of battle consumes mana. Even some of the bigger movements require mana to support them. I've really become restricted in every aspect. Upon hearing this, many girls looked at the limited bracelet on their wrists. It's just as Natsuki said. Now, every girl present could feel that they couldn't use the various combat abilities that they were supposed to have. It's not that they can't fight anymore. They're like a car that ran out of gas. They can only use their combat abilities after the gas is refilled. Wu Yan's mana is the fuel that allows the girls to use their combat abilities. Natsuki, Kanon, and Nagisa's restrictions are even more severe. The three girls aren't limited to Wu Yan's automaton. They are also Wu Yan's familiars. They need mana to maintain their existence in this world. If Wu Yan didn't inject mana into them, they would have returned to Wu Yan's body a long time ago. It's a good thing Wu Yan is the one providing the mana. If it was anyone else, just keeping the three girls alive would be a huge burden, not to mention providing them with the mana they need to fight. Even though you guys are limited to automaton, you guys still have elements that other automatons don't have. Wu Yan shook his head as he reminded them. An automaton can only carry one magic circuit and perform one magic trick other than Eve's heart, but you don't have such a restriction. In other words, if we display more than two abilities, we might arouse suspicion and cause trouble, right? Natsuki hit the nail on the head and pointed out the drawbacks. In order to avoid trouble, it's better for us to fight according to the magic circuit recorded in the information you presented to the Academy. That's true. Wu Yan nodded and looked at Natsuki. In that case, Natsuki, the magic circuit you recorded is space manipulation. In the future, you can just use your space manipulation magic. You can hide your guardian for now. The lock of discipline is a weapon. It's not part of the scope. Natsuki nodded. I'll just hide my guardian. My magic circuit is healing boost. Kanon said calmly. I'll be in charge of healing from now on. I won't be using the power of purification. My magic circuit is freezing mist. It can control ice and cold air. Nagisa replied. I'll talk to Aurora and tell her not to reveal the true form of the Enchantress of Azure Ice in battle. Natsuki, Kanon, and Nagisa responded. Astria racked her brain to recall the magic circuit she recorded in her notes. She looked at Wu Yan with a pleading look. Astria's magic circuit is particle sword. It can control the size of a vibrating lightsaber. Wu Yan chuckled. That's why, Astria, you should hide your shield when you fight from now on. Wu Yan looked at Ikaros, who has been by his side since the beginning. Ikaros's magic circuit is the wave barrier, the ability to form a protective barrier. From now on, Ikaros, you only need to use Aegis to protect Kanon and me. Protect. Master. Ikaros's indigo eyes flashed with a sharp light. Yes. Just like that, Wu Yan's battle team was formed. Chapter 1574. The next morning, wake up. Teacher, wake up. Master, it's morning. In a daze, Wu Yan heard two indistinct but strangely familiar voices that were extremely close to his ears, trying to wake him up from his dreams. Really, teacher, don't sleep in anymore. Get up quickly. Master, I'm hungry. Let's go eat. As his hazy consciousness gradually cleared, the voice that drilled into Wu Yan's ears also became clear, causing Wu Yan to slowly open his eyes. Oh, wake up, wake up. Yet, when Wu Yan opened his eyes, Nagisa and Astria's beautiful faces entered his vision. Wu Yan finally woke up from his dream. Ikaros, Astria, Natsuki, Kanon, Nagisa, and the other girls woke up in the bright dorm room under Kazuhi's sunlight. At this moment, Natsuki was sitting on a chair with a teacup in her hand. She was enjoying black tea. Kanon stood beside Natsuki, holding a tea set in her hands like a maid. Natsuki's black tea was brewed by Kanon. Nagisa and Astria laid on either side of Wu Yin, who was sleeping on the ground with a quilt covering his mattress. She looked at him with her red, gem-like eyes, beaming with joy. Ikaros, on the other hand, stayed by Wu Yan's side as usual. She sat cross-legged on the side of the sleeping Wu Yan's head. It was as if Wu Yan was the only one left in her indigo pupils. From her eyes, Wu Yan could even see his own sleepy self. It was so bright that it made one's heart tremble. "Good morning." Seeing Wu Yan gradually opening his eyes, Ikaros's pitiful pair of eyes flickered a little. She's the first one to greet him. "Master." "Good morning." "Teacher, master." Astria, Nagisa, and Kanon also greeted Wu Yan in a cheerful and shy manner. Until now, Wu Yan recalled what had happened last night. In the Walpurgis Royal Academy of Engineering, the automaton of the puppeteer was classified as the personal belongings of the puppeteer. Therefore, the Walpurgis Wang Li Robotics Academy would not provide another residence for the automaton of the puppeteer to live in. The puppeteer would either shut down the operation of his automaton and place the dormant automaton in a facility of the Walpurgis Wang Li Robotics Academy that was dedicated to the safekeeping of robotics. Either, he could only carry it with him. In other words, last night, Wu Yan's group of 6 stayed in the same dormitory. Or rather, even if he became an official student of the Walpurgis Royal Tactical Academy, Wu Yan would still have to stay in the same dorm with a group of girls. That's a lot of trouble. After all, there were 6 of them here. No matter how big the dorm was, it was only a temporary dorm for normal guests. It would be difficult to fit 6 people. Fortunately, Ikaros and Astria were omnipotent angels. They didn't need to sleep. Natsuki, Kanon, and Nagisa were able to sleep comfortably on a large bed that could easily fit 3 people. As for Wu Yan, he had to sleep on the floor. As usual, you can't do anything about waking up early. Natsuki's expressionless face showed a hint of annoyance. Can someone like you really be a good student? I don't know if I could be a good student, but I can't avoid being late in the morning. Wu Yan yawned and sat up. He rubbed his eyes. Seriously, why can't you be late in the morning? What are you talking about? Nagisa stood up with her hands on her hips. She looked down at Wu Yan, who is still sitting on the ground. Isn't it because it's morning that you should be more energetic? Well, I'm not the only one who's tired. Wu Yan yawned again and pointed to the side. Look at Astria. She's tired as well. I'm hungry, master. Astria rubbed her flat tummy and whimpered while shaking her head. I'm hungry. I'm hungry, I know. Wu Yan smiled bitterly and stood up. Then let's go eat. Yes, master. Walpurgis Royal Mechanical Academy, Main Street. At this time, the main street was completely bustling with activity. One by one, students wearing uniforms and carrying automatons walked out of the dormitories in an endless stream, filling up the entire main street. Not long after, it was time for class. Most of the students went to the student cafeteria in the middle of the main street. It's the only cafeteria in the academy. Other than this cafeteria, the only other cafeteria that serves food is the dorm downstairs. However, the food served in the cafeteria is fixed every day. Almost everyone eats the same dishes. Students with more money would avoid the dorm cafeteria and eat at the student cafeteria. However, it just so happened that most of the students in the Walpurgis Royal Tactical Academy were people who came from influential forces with high status. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to afford such an expensive tuition fee. Most of the students would abandon the dorm cafeteria and eat at the student cafeteria. Under such circumstances, coupled with the fact that classes were about to begin, all the students on the main street gathered together and walked in one direction. It was as if a school sports meet was being held, and the scene was so lively that it was enough to scare people. On such a crowded street, many people's gazes were gathered in one direction at a certain time. Wu Yan, was leading a group of girls to the student cafeteria. That pink-haired girl is so pretty. The blonde one is pretty too, and that girl with short silver hair. She looks like a saintess. The long black hair and the ponytail are cute too. I've never seen them before. Are they freshmen? Speaking of which, who's that annoying guy walking with those pretty girls? Whispers echoed in the air and entered the ears of Wu Yin and the others. Wu Yin led the group of girls, and under the envious gazes of the onlookers, they followed the flow of the crowd and moved forward. Not long after, a grayish-white building appeared in front of them. One of the walls was made of glass windows. It was a building the size of an auditorium. It was the size of 2 soccer fields. Stone pillars were arranged in an orderly manner, connecting the ground to the ceiling that was at least 10 to 20 meters high. It was more than enough to accommodate the flow of students. There were glass windows on the ceiling, allowing light to shine in. The cafeteria was very bright. Rows of white round tables were neatly arranged in the bright and spacious cafeteria. It was a spectacular sight. The cafeteria was filled with the fragrance of food. At the front of the cafeteria, there was a large amount of food on metal plates and containers. There was meat, fish, bread, salads, and everything else. The students who came to the cafeteria were lined up in rows. They kept moving forward until they reached the front of the food and placed it on their empty plates. It seemed that in this cafeteria, the students had to choose their favorite dishes by themselves. There was no waiter to serve them. When they saw the front of the line at the corner of the restaurant, Wu Yin and Co. stopped in their tracks. They couldn't move anymore. This was because at the front of the line, on one side of the plates of various dishes, there was a person wearing a restaurant uniform who was skillfully operating a machine. He was also receiving bills from the students who had chosen their dishes. It was the cashier. You have to pay to eat here. Because of this, Wu Yin and the girls stopped in their tracks. It wasn't that they didn't have money. They only had gold coins and no notes. Chapter 1575. The group of people stood at the entrance of the restaurant and stared in the direction of the cashier in silence. It looks delicious. Astria, who is still oblivious to the situation, looked at the direction where the aroma is coming from. She kept tugging at Wu Yan's clothes. Let's go. Wu Yan rubbed his brows. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Restaurant charges? Wasn't this a matter of course? Even the meals provided to students in the dormitory cafeteria had to be paid. However, the meals in the dormitory cafeteria were already counted as food expenses and included in the tuition fees. Students did not need to pay cash when eating in the dormitory cafeteria. Wu Yan didn't have any cash since he had to pay the tuition fee in gold coins. In terms of yen, Wu Yan had lived in Heavenly Palace City in the Date Battle world, Itagami City in the Blood Raid world, and Fuyuki City in the Magical Girl Ilya world. However, this is Liverpool, the academic city of England, also known as the Smart City. In other words, the currency used here is pound sterling. Hey, Natsuki. Wu Yan rubbed his brows and looked at Natsuki. You are one of the top offensive magi in Itagami Island, the Witch of the Void, the name of which is feared by the demons. You must have worked in many places, right? For example, England, right? Are you an idiot? Natsuki said with an expressionless face. When I officially became an attack mage commander, I also became the prison barriers warden. The one who was active as an attack mage commander was my avatar. Do you think it's that easy for me to leave Itagami Island and go to a place as far away as England? Natsuki said. Wu Yan fell silent and looked at Kanon and Nagisa. I have always lived on Itagami Island. Kanon helplessly looked at Wu Yan with her emerald eyes. So, I only collected English coins from my parents when I was young. Nagisa smiled awkwardly. Now they're all in my house. Kanon and Nagisa's conversation. Wu Yan fell silent. He subconsciously looked at Ikaros. Ikaros muttered with a bit of unease. Do you want to go grab some? This time, Wu Yan didn't say anything. His expression collapsed. Astria had a bad feeling about this. Tears started forming at the corner of her eyes. Are we not allowed to eat anymore? What should we do? Wu Yin couldn't help but lower his head when he saw Estria's expression, as if she just saw the end of the world. He mumbled to himself, "Why don't we let Ikaros go and snatch some back, if it's just a few? That should be fine, right? Are you an idiot?" Someone behind Wu Yin and Co. said the same thing as Natsuki. A voice that didn't sound friendly came from behind Wu Yin and company. Everyone was stunned. They turned around and looked at the source of the voice. They saw a person with long golden hair that reached his waist, blue eyes, and a small dragon on his beret. A young girl as beautiful as a fairy entered his field of vision. However, it was a pity that at this moment, that beautiful and alluring face, the corners of her mouth and eyes were twitching. She had a look of disbelief. What an idiot! Idiot! What an unparalleled idiot! You can't find another idiot like him, even if you search the entire world. Without the slightest bit of politeness, the fairy-like beautiful young lady took a deep breath and began to insult the person she had just met yesterday. "Rob, aren't you afraid of being attacked by the discipline committee and the guards? Aren't you afraid your automaton will be confiscated? Or do you think that the price of producing a new automaton is more worth it than the money that you stole?" "You are." Astria tilted her head to the side and her eyes widened. She yelled out loud, "You're the bad guy from yesterday." "That's not my name. I'm not a bad guy. My name is Charlotte. Birao." The girl named Charlotte glared at Astria. "Who's the bad guy here? Seal saw you guys looking troubled, so he came over to check on you guys." Sigmund, who was lying on top of Charlotte's head, suddenly said in his unique old voice, "Even though he eavesdropped on us, he came with good intentions. He's not a bad guy. Actually, Seal has a good heart." "Shut up, Sigmund." Charlotte's pretty face stiffened. He shouted in shame and anger, "Be careful. I might replace your chicken with breadcrumbs." Nagisa stood up and bowed apologetically to Charlotte. "I'm really sorry about yesterday." "Forget it. I also threw a tantrum. Let's call it even." Charlotte wasn't used to dealing with Nagisa's formal way of apologizing. She turned her head away in a fit of anger, but she quickly looked back at Nagisa. "By the way, I thought you didn't have money to eat?" "Well, it's not that I don't have enough money to eat." Wu Yin sighed. He grabbed something from his pocket and tossed it at Charlotte. "We just don't have any cash." Charlotte reflexively reached out her hand and caught a small object that was flying toward her. She opened it and was immediately stunned. Lying in Charlotte's palm was a shiny gold coin. A gold coin? Charlotte's face stiffened again. Should I say it's an accident? Or should I say it's within reason? Sigmund shook his head. To be able to carry 5 automatons with him, of course, he wouldn't be short of money. However, this so-called not short of money has already reached the level where he can casually put gold coins in his pocket. There are plenty of rich people in this academy. Natsuki said nonchalantly, "Little girl, you must be a rich young lady, right? Who do you think I am?" Charlotte's blue eyes emitted a sharp light like that of a ferocious beast. "I am the Charlotte of the Northern Territories Count Bilo family, with the unicorn badge bestowed by Her Majesty the Queen." Bilo. When she said this, Charlotte's tone wasn't filled with pride and glory, but something even more intense. It was like the Charlotte of the Northern Territories Count Bilo family, with the unicorn badge bestowed by Her Majesty the Queen. The phrase Barao was not a title or status, but a dream and yearning. Therefore, Sigmund, who was lying on Charlotte's head, fell silent. Natsuki also stopped talking. Even Astria, who didn't understand complicated matters, noticed the change in atmosphere and shut her mouth. Of course, the only thing she shut was her mouth. Gulp. In the silence, Astria's stomach started growling at the most inappropriate time. You. Astria clutched her stomach and shrugged her shoulders weakly. She sounded like she was about to cry. I'm hungry." The solemn atmosphere instantly collapsed, and Charlotte's resolute expression became powerless. "You did it on purpose." After glaring at Wu Yan, Charlotte grabbed Wu Yan's hand and smashed the gold coin back into Wu Yan's hand. Then, Charlotte walked into the dining hall and said angrily, "What are you waiting for? Do you really want to go hungry?" "I don't want to," Astria yelled out without hesitation. She then looked at Wu Yin with a pitiful expression. R. Astria-chan. Nagisa and Cannon looked at each other helplessly. You. Wu Yin shook his head. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Then let's follow her. Yay. It's time to eat. Astria smiled brightly and chased after Charlotte. Charlotte? Bilo. I was wrong. You're a good person. Who's a good person? You're a bad person. I. Huh? Am I not? That's right. I'm a bad person. Everyone looked at each other helplessly when they saw Astria hopping around beside Charlotte and Charlotte giving up on herself. They couldn't do anything about it. Chapter 1576. Ho. Astria held a plate of meat slices in one hand and a spaghetti rolled up with a fork in the other. She chewed on the spaghetti from time to time. Her beautiful face was bloated from eating. She had a blissful expression on her face. Ding! Cannon tidied up the empty plates and put them aside with an incredulous expression. On the other side, Ikaros was doing the same thing. She had a pitiful expression on her face. She didn't look surprised at all. Soon, the plates were stacked on top of each other by Astria's side. The height of the plates was still increasing. Right now, the plates were at least 20 centimeters tall. Nagisa was already stunned by the sight. Natsuki also looked like she was full. She looked at Astria, who was happily eating with her blue eyes, and sighed. In the dining hall, the rest of the students who were eating at the dining table all looked over with a dull expression. Their mouths were wide open, and their jaws almost fell to the ground. What's even more hilarious is that some of them followed their master around. The automaton that can also eat seemed to think that the master who was watching Astria was enjoying this. It followed Astria's example and started eating as well. In the end, they were all lying on the table and couldn't get up anymore. The atmosphere in the cafeteria became eerie as the dead silence continued to spread. Even the staff of the restaurant and the chefs in the kitchen of the restaurant left their work and gathered in the distance, looking over here. They watched as Astria ate. Astria, who was stuffed like a bottomless pit, looked at each other in confusion. They must be wondering why such a beautiful girl would eat so much. That seductive body of hers can hold so much food, right? Of course. She's a beautiful girl. To have such a huge appetite, it must have given a huge shock to the students who were also eating in the cafeteria. Standing at the dining table, Sigmund, who was eating just now, was drowned by the dishes. His figure could not be seen at all, nor could he see his performance at this moment. Charlotte unconsciously let go of the sandwich in her hand, and the sandwich in her hand fell on the table with a thud. Everyone stared blankly at Astria, who was eating with a blissful expression on her face. No one said a word. After a long time, Charlotte finally took out a wallet from her arms with trembling hands. She opened it again with trembling hands. After checking all the notes inside, 2 streams of tears flowed down her cheeks. It's over. What's wrong? Wu Yin turned his attention back to Charlotte, as if he's watching a good show. You don't have enough money? Of course it's impossible for me to use up all my money for a meal, Charlotte retorted. Then, she burst into tears again. But from the looks of it, I have to spend at least a month's worth of food on this meal. Mama, don't make a fuss out of nothing. Wu Yin grinned at Charlotte. With Astria's appetite, she should only be 70% full right now. If you're so surprised now, what are you going to do when she's 100% full? She's only 70% full? Charlotte shrieked, and she grabbed Wu Yin by the collar. She pulled Wu Yin in front of her, and she yelled at him. I don't care. You have to pay me back now. Huh? Looking at Charlotte's face that was inches away from his, smelling the fragrance coming from Charlotte's body, Wu Yin exclaimed in shock. Didn't you treat us to this meal? Who's treating you? Charlotte didn't hesitate to show her unreasonable side. Listen up. I'm the one who lent you money for this meal, not the other way around. You must pay. Fine. Wu Yin raised his hand in surrender. I'll pay you back when I get some paper money. How about I give you a gold coin? Gold coin. Charlotte's ferocious expression disappeared, and she started hesitating. Astria's appetite is scary. She will have to pay a hefty price, but it's not to the point where she has to pay a gold coin. If she were to accept Wu Yan's gold coin, she would have profited from it. I won't take advantage of others. However, Charlotte immediately refused after hesitating for a moment. You just need to pay me back. Fine. Also, interest will be charged from now on. You call that not taking advantage of others? Charlotte didn't even have the energy to throw a tantrum when she heard Estria's clanking sound. After she made Wu Yin pay the interest, she looked at Estria and sighed in admiration. With such a gluttonous automaton, it's no wonder you have to carry gold coins around with you. I know you have misunderstood, but you are right in a way. It's not easy to feed Estria. Wu Yin patted his cheeks. But it's best if she can eat her fill. It will be troublesome if she gets hungry during my test today. Test? Charlotte paused for a moment before she realized what Wu Yin meant. All right, you're a new student, so you have to take a test today to determine your ranking in the academy. It's boring, right? Wu Yin is bored out of his mind. He rested his face on his hand and waved his other hand. Ranking or whatever, it doesn't matter. What do you mean it doesn't matter? Charlotte frowned. She looked at Wu Yin with a serious expression. I mean, do you really understand the importance of a puppeteer's ranking in the academy? Importance? Importance? Wu Yin looked at Charlotte with a half-smile on his face. That's only for a portion of people, right? Charlotte choked and couldn't say anything. The Walpurgis Royal Mechanical Arts Academy was the best academy in the world of magic. It was also an institution that constantly sent out excellent puppeteers and nurtured top-notch puppeteers. Students who could study in the Walpurgis Royal Mechanical Academy were basically geniuses who came from all over the world and had the most outstanding talents. Every 4 years, the Walpurgis Wang Li Robotics Academy would hold a tournament to select the best golem user from the geniuses from all over the world. Night Gathering. It's officially known as the Walpurgis Royal Mechanic Academy's Night Gathering. It's a tournament organized by the Walpurgis Royal Mechanic Academy to select the best puppeteer. In the Night Gathering, the puppeteers will use magic to control automatons to battle. In the end, the only winner will be crowned as the Demon King. A puppeteer with the Demon King title would be the best, most outstanding, and most powerful puppeteer in the world. After becoming the Demon King, the puppeteer would be able to ignore the rules of the International Magic Charter and the Magician's Code of Ethics. He would have the right to read books and research forbidden spells. In other words, he could do whatever he wanted. The Demon King, who was not bound by any restrictions, would be able to read all physical bodies, use all forbidden techniques, and even carry out the exploration of immortality and genetic modification. In addition, the title of Demon King had proven that it was the strongest puppet user of the current generation that was born once every 4 years. Therefore, puppet users who receive the title of Demon King will be treated like military officers no matter which country they were in. Wealth, fame, knowledge, power. The one who becomes the Demon King will have all of these. Only the top 100 students in the Walpurgis Royal Mechanic Academy can participate in the Night Gathering and have the right to compete for the Demon King title. That's why Charlotte mentioned the importance of ranking. That's why Wu Yin said it's only for a certain number of people. After all, as long as one isn't in the top 100, they can't participate in the Night Gathering. Naturally, for students who aren't in the top 100, the ranking in the academy isn't that important. Of course, that's for those who don't have the ability and don't want to compete for the Demon King title. Suddenly, a commotion came from outside the restaurant. Chapter 1577. The student cafeteria was located in the center of the main street of Walpurgis Royal Mechanic Academy. The cafeteria had a wall made of glass and the seats near the wall made of glass, so the students could clearly see the main street that extended in all directions past the cafeteria. Therefore, if something happened on the main street outside the cafeteria, the students in the cafeteria would be able to see it clearly. At the same time, there was a small commotion on the main street outside the cafeteria. The one who caused the commotion was a student wearing the uniform of Walpurgis Royal Mechanic Academy. The female uniform of Walpurgis Royal Mechanic Academy was a white shirt with a black tank top that exposed a chest and a short gray skirt. The male uniform was a simple white shirt and black trousers, but on top of the white shirt, there would be a black tight leather jacket with a tank top. Apart from wearing the same male uniform as the other students, this student was also wearing a luxurious black cloak with badge-like ornaments on both shoulders. On his face, there was a silver mask that covered the upper part of his nose, and only one eye was exposed. Just the outfit alone, it was enough to show that this student was out of place with his surroundings. Needless to say, there was an oppressive aura that made one's heart palpitate as he walked on the main street. It gradually filled the air with his figure. Obviously, he was not just a normal student. Behind him, there were two girls in black dresses with lotus edges and lace, with a black veil hanging over their faces, who looked like the dead, following him closely as if they were his bodyguards. No matter how one looked at them, they did not look like normal girls. They were his bodyguards. That was an automaton. It was this student who was carrying two automatons in the form of young girls. A small commotion was caused on the main street outside the cafeteria. Of course, it was not his fault. The commotion. It was not so much this unusual student that caused it. Rather, it was the students around him that caused it. The student carrying two automatons in the form of young girls walked on the main street expressionlessly. In front of him, all the students retreated to the sides of the main street in a panic. Every student who retreated to the sides of the main street avoided him in a panic, similar to when they saw Charlot yesterday evening. But this time, the students' expressions were completely different from when they saw Charlot. When they saw Charlot, they were afraid and fearful. When the students saw the student who was carrying two automatons, they were filled with respect and fear from the bottom of their hearts. It was as if they were ordinary soldiers who were admiring a general who had accomplished miraculous feats on the battlefield. Now, the students who were making way for him gave off such a feeling. Oh? Natsuki looked at the student with the silver mask, black cloak, and two automatons in the form of young girls. There's an interesting person here. Who is that person? Nagisa blinked her large, watery eyes. He seems very powerful. It's him. Charlot frowned when she saw the student with the silver mask. He is. Magnus. Wu Yin interrupted her before she could finish. He is the best student in all his subjects in the academy, and his comprehensive score is the best in history. He can be said to be the most talented and the strongest genius since the Walpurgis Royal Mechanical Academy was established. Controlling 6 automatons that have the name of one-man force, and whose combat ability is comparable to that of several warships when combined, is the puppeteer who is most likely to win the night meeting and win the title of Devil King. I said. Wu Yan had a strange smile on his face that Charlot couldn't understand. Am I right? Yes. Charlot's frown deepened when she saw the strange smile on Wu Yan's face, but she still nodded. Magnus' ingenious magic and magic power are far beyond the level of ordinary puppeteers and even the top puppeteers. Ever since he entered the school, he has shown his talent and climbed to the top of the night meeting ranking. He is a monster that even the ingenious professor who teaches practical combat said he has no chance of winning. Is that so? Wu Yan glanced at Magnus, who was walking on the main street. In other words, he is your strongest enemy who wants the title of Demon King, right? Yes, you are right. Charlot smiled bitterly. The number of automaton he controls is even more than you. Not only that, but each of them has a powerful combat power. If I were to fight 1 or 2 of them, I might still be able to find a slight chance of winning. If I were to fight 3 of them, it would be my limit. If I were to fight 4 of them, I would definitely lose. If I were to fight all 6 of them, no chance of winning. Charlot didn't say it out loud, but that was probably what she was trying to say. One-man force. Natsuki's blue eyes softened a little as she stared at Magnus. There was a slight ripple in her eyes. What? Wu Yan's lips curled into an amused grin. You're interested in him? A little. Natsuki said in an emotionless tone that startled Charlotte. Maybe it's because I haven't exercised for a long time, or maybe it's because I'm too weak. A little. I want to exercise a little. Exercise a little. Charlotte was stunned for a moment before she opened her mouth wide. You want to? Well, that's fine too. Wu Yin stood up and looked out the window. I wanted to see what level we are at. If our opponent is the number one in the academy, he should be able to give us a good result. What? What do you mean? A thought flashed through Charlot's mind. He was shocked by his own thoughts. Don't tell me you want to challenge Magnus? Are you crazy? He's an existence that can skillfully control 6 powerful automatons. Do you know that? 6. Wu Yin rubbed his chin as if he's in a dilemma. I only have 5 automatons. I'm at a disadvantage in terms of numbers. You're only considering numbers? Aren't you a little too naive? Charlot stood up. Even if he only sent out an automaton with Magnus' strength, he would be able to defeat 90% of the top 100 puppeteers who are qualified to participate in the night gathering. Not to mention the fact that Magnus is strong enough to defeat more than 90% of the top 100 puppeteers. Not to mention, he's also good at group battles. Every time you add an automaton, it's not like you're adding more than one automaton. The increase in combat power isn't as simple as 1 plus 1. Do you think you have a chance of winning just because you have as many automatons as Magnus? Magnus' automaton is also very strong, but magic and skill are Magnus' strongest points. Charlotte became serious. Do you understand? In short, even if Wu Yan's automaton was stronger than Magnus' automaton, he couldn't beat Magnus in terms of magic power and technique. A truly powerful puppeteer, even if he was controlling the weakest automaton, would still be much more powerful than those puppeteers who had powerful automatons but were only there to make up the numbers. This was Charlotte's intention. In other words, in Charlotte's heart, Wu Yan's magic and skills were no match for Magnus. But it wasn't strange. Wu Yan is just a new student who hasn't been assigned to a dorm. He didn't even have a uniform yet. No one expected a new student to have the ability to defeat the number 1 genius puppeteer who broke the Academy's record. Too bad Charlotte didn't know that Wu Yan is indeed weak when it comes to puppeteer skills. But even if he doesn't have any skills, his magic power won't lose to anyone. Plus, I don't think my companions will lose to a coward who doesn't even dare to show his face. Leaving these words behind, Wu Yan turned around and walked towards the entrance of the restaurant. Natsuki and Ikaros's eyes lit up. They stood up and followed him. Cannon also stood up silently, bowed politely to the stunned Charlotte, and followed after them. Estrella-chan. Nagisa grabbed Estrella's hand and dragged her up. Stop eating. We're going to fight. You. Estrella reluctantly gave up on the food on the table. She and Nagisa followed the rest of the group without hesitation. That idiot! Charlotte yelled and hurriedly chased after them with Sigmund. Chapter 1578. It's Magnus. Magnus is here. Did you bring your automaton to class again? Magnus seems to be quite active in class recently. In the past, he would only go to the lecture hall after we started class. It was hard to even see him. Now, we can see him on the main street almost every day. It should be because of the night meeting, right? That's right. The night meeting should be starting soon. Even if he's the number 1 in the academy, he should be a bit nervous, right? That's true. On both sides of the main street, the students fully played the role of spectators. They looked at Magnus with awe as he walked across the main street while whispering to each other. It's unknown if he didn't hear them or if he didn't, but he acted like he didn't. Magnus was still expressionless. Even his eyes that were exposed outside the mask didn't have a trace of emotion. It seems like he's already used to being the center of attention, right? Magnus slowly walked towards one of the lecture halls in the academy under everyone's gaze with the 2 teenage automatons in tow. However, it didn't take long before Magnus' footsteps paused for a moment. It's not because of anything else. It's because, in this situation where everyone is avoiding him, there's a person walking towards him. There was a person walking towards Magnus on the main street to greet him. It was a man with black hair, red eyes, and a calm expression on his face. He was accompanied by 5 beautiful young girls of different sizes, figures, and temperaments. They were so beautiful that they looked like they had walked out of a painting. They were chatting and laughing as they walked over. The man was wearing a black shirt, black pants, and a black coat. He wasn't even wearing the academy's uniform. It made people wonder if he was a student of this academy. But it was very obvious. He was carrying an automaton, so he shouldn't be a teacher. After all, in the Walpurgis Royal Tactical Academy, other than the professors who taught tactical magic and control techniques, there were also other instructors. The other teachers either didn't have an automaton, or even if there was an automaton, it would be impossible. They wouldn't just casually bring one out. However, Magnus has seen all the teachers who taught magic and control techniques. So, the man in front of him who was carrying 5 automatons. He should be a new student. Of course, at the scene, only Magnus was able to guess the other party's identity. The students, standing on both sides of the main street, looked at each other, not knowing what was going on. These students didn't see that the beautiful girls following the man were all automatons. The reason Magnus was able to tell that the girls were automatons was because he was extremely sensitive to mana. Therefore, he could clearly feel that there was a weak and almost imperceptible magical wave on the man's body that was constantly rippling and flowing into the bodies of the 5 young ladies bit by bit. Only an automaton could receive magic power from others so easily. It was also because he sensed the magic flowing from the man's body that Magnus paused for a moment. Automatons that had self-discipline and high intelligence only needed to receive a certain amount of magic from their master to be able to maintain their daily activities. And the magic power flowing out of the man who was walking towards them and infusing into the 5 automatons was enough for them to fight. The man was coming for him. After coming to this conclusion, Magnus' expression didn't change at all. His footsteps returned to normal, and he walked towards the man. It didn't matter if the man was coming from Magnus or not. Magnus wouldn't take it to heart. As the number 1 super genius in the history of the Academy, it wasn't the first or second time that Magnus had been provoked by others. If he took it to heart every time, then Magnus would be tired. So, to Magnus, even though he hadn't been provoked in a long time, it was just a small interlude in his daily life. Nothing more. With this mentality, strands of weak magic rose from Magnus' body and poured into the 2 girls behind him, as well as several other places. Under such circumstances, the distance between the 2 male automatons, who were also in the form of young girls, gradually narrowed, until the distance between them was shortened to only 4 to 5 meters. Whoosh! In that instant, a gust of wind blew out from behind Magnus and blew towards the main street in front of him without any warning. Around them, all the students only saw a blur in front of their eyes. Following that, a fragrant scent drifted along with the wind. Then, on the main street, an unbelievable scene appeared in front of everyone's eyes. He saw a few girls wearing black dresses with lotus leaves and lace skirts. They also had a black curtain hanging over their faces, but their hair was of different colors. They held various weapons in their hands, and they were accompanied by 5 girls of different sizes. They flashed around the man who was not wearing a uniform. There were a total of 6 girls. Their faces were all covered by the black veil, making it impossible to see their faces. However, some of them held crimson swords, some crimson short sabers, some crimson spears, and some crimson sickles. As for those scarlet, red sharp weapons, they were now raised by the encirclement of young ladies. The razor-sharp edges of those weapons were pressed against the throat of the man who wasn't wearing a uniform. Of these 6 girls, 2 of them were the automatons that Magnus just brought with him. Where the other 4 came from, none of the students knew. But what made them feel incredulous wasn't that they didn't notice when the automatons of the top puppeteers of the 6 academies appeared and formed a circle around the man without a uniform. What truly caused them to feel disbelief was that the automaton of the number 1 puppet user in the history of the 6 academies, and the sharp weapons that were pressed against the throat of the man who was not wearing a uniform, were all wrapped around by a chain that flickered with a faint purple light. It was a chain that extended out from the space behind the 6 girl-shaped automatons that had formed an encirclement. Where these shackles came from, when they appeared, and when they wrapped around the weapons of Magnus automatons. No one knew either. They only knew that under the effect of these shackles, Even if the sharp weapons were aimed at the throat of the man without a uniform, they couldn't pierce any further. But on the other side, it was the complete opposite. In everyone's eyes, the undefeatable number one powerhouse of the academy, Magnus. Compared to the man who was surrounded by 6 girls, there was only one girl in front of him. She had long golden hair that reached her ankles, tied with 2 white ribbons at the ends of her hair, splitting it into 2 ponytails. She was the girl who was beside the man who was surrounded just now. The girl was the same as the 6 girls surrounding the man without a uniform. She was holding a weapon in her hand. It was a laser lightsaber that was constantly vibrating and emitting a buzzing sound. This lightsaber was also raised by the girl at this moment and pressed against Magnus' throat. The 2 men standing face to face on the main street both had sharp weapons pressed against their throats. But one side was blocked by all sorts of weapons, while the other weapons were shackled by the purple light shackles and couldn't move at all. On the other side, there was only one weapon pressed against the throat, but if the owner wanted to stab it in, it would definitely be able to smoothly and cleanly slit the throat of the other party. In just an instant, who was superior? It was immediately decided. The surrounding students were all shocked to the extreme. Charlotte, who caught up, froze on the spot, her face full of disbelief. Magnus' pupils continued to shrink until they were the size of a needle's tip. Chapter 1579. Silence. A deathly silence. All the students stared at the 2 men who were standing face to face with their weapons pressed against their throats by the automaton. Their expressions kept changing, and finally, they were all stunned. Impossible! Charlotte, who had just rushed out of the student cafeteria, had a shocked expression on her beautiful face. Not to mention Charlotte, even Sigmund, who was flying beside Charlotte and resting on Charlotte's shoulder, straightened his body and reacted in a manner similar to that of shock. This battle had come too quickly, and it ended too quickly. However, regardless of whether it was Charlot, who knew that the 2 of them would meet, or the surrounding students who had yet to react, all of them seemed to subconsciously reject everything they saw and froze on the spot. Although it was only a momentary encounter, no one knew how much of their strength the 2 people on the main street had used. However, the most talented and strongest puppeteer in the history of the Academy had mobilized all 6 of his automatons. In the end, he still lost to a nobody in a battle that might not even last a second. That was a fact. The 2 men who weren't wearing uniforms formed a circle around Magnus' automatons and began to exert force on their weapons, as if trying to break free from the chains that wrapped around their weapons. Unfortunately, no matter how hard the 6 girl-shaped automatons tried, the chains that were glowing with purple light wrapped around the weapons firmly shackled them, causing the various weapons to be unable to move at all. Left with no choice, the 6 young girl automaton decisively gave up on those weapons. With light footsteps, they nimbly retreated and chose to save their master instead. However, the laser lightsaber that was pressed against Magnus' throat gently moved forward and pierced the skin of Magnus' throat a little. The blood flowed down. It was just a very slight movement. Magnus' 6 automaton girls abruptly stopped in their tracks and stood in the middle of the main street, not daring to move anymore. Ding ding. At this moment, a figure appeared from the space. Only then did the chains that wrapped around the weapons of Magnus' automatons begin to move. The red weapons that were wrapped around them loosened. With a contraction, they returned to the space and disappeared. The man who wasn't wearing a uniform continued to lead the other 4 young female automatons of different sizes. As if nothing had happened, his expression was as calm as ever as he walked towards Magnus with footsteps that could be heard by everyone present. Magnus' automatons immediately went on alert, but the other party ignored them and walked past them, even past Magnus, and headed to the other side of the main street. Then, the blonde girl who held the laser sword against Magnus' throat put away her weapon and jumped back to the man's side, walking towards the other side of the street. Looking at the man leaving with the 5 young girls without saying a word, no one at the scene made sound. They only looked at him and used their gazes to send off the victor of the short encounter as he slowly walked away. Magnus, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly raised his head and spoke. Name. The man who wasn't wearing a uniform stopped, and the young female automatons also stopped. Shouldn't you say your own name before asking for someone else's name? Maintaining his posture with his back facing everyone, the man's casual and humorous voice echoed. Well, even though I already know your name. That's right, Magnus. Magnus spat out one word after another in a concise manner. Name. I'm not as famous as you. The man waved his hand and said with a smile. But you can call me Wu Yin. Wu Yin? The surrounding students lowered their heads and racked their brains to recall if they had any recollection of this name. Wu Yin. Charlotte repeated his name over and over again as if she's trying to engrave it in her mind. Wu Yin. Magnus nodded. I'll remember. After saying this, Magnus didn't even turn his head as he continued to walk towards the other side of the main street. Compared to Magnus' casual behavior, as if nothing had happened, the 6 automatons around him were on full alert. Their positions changed subtly. It looked like they wanted to protect Magnus. They followed Magnus' footsteps, and they kept looking back as if they were afraid Wu Yin would ambush them. Finally, they left the scene. At the same time, Wu Yin brought Natsuki, Ikaros, Astria, Cannon, and Nagisa away from Magnus. Their backs faced each other as they distanced themselves from Magnus. Charlotte finally reacted. She hurriedly brought Sigmund along and chased after the two of them once again. At the scene, there was only a crowd of students left. Their gazes swept over the backs of the 2 men who were running in opposite directions. When the 2 figures disappeared, a clamor resounded through the entire student cafeteria's Main Street Center area. Thus, the rumor of Magnus, the #1 student of the academy, being defeated by a freshman with 5 automatons spread like wildfire. Wu Yin pursed his lips when he heard the commotion coming from the other side of the street. He looked at Natsuki. How is it? I can't tell. Natsuki replied immediately, even though it was a random question. That Magnus brat may have entered battle mode, but he clearly wasn't serious about dealing with you. The only reason you were able to achieve such a result was because of his carelessness. Therefore, we still have no way of determining his true strength. You're right. Wu Yin nodded in agreement. All of Magnus' automatons have been dispatched, but they haven't even activated their magic circuits. On the other hand, we've already used the magic circuits registered in the data. I'm sure we have the upper hand in terms of level. It's hard to tell how the battle will turn out if we don't actually fight. Natsuki looked straight ahead. At the very least, we can only use the magic circuits you registered. Let's do this then. Wu Yin thought for a bit and waved his hand. To be able to suppress Magnus in an instant when he was careless, it more or less proves that there aren't many people in the academy who can cause trouble for us. Probably. Natsuki didn't deny it. Master. Ikaros, who was following behind Wu Yin, spoke up. Miss Charlotte is here. Wait. Just as Ikaros finished her sentence, Charlotte caught up to Wu Yin and she glared at him while huffing and puffing. What happened just now? What did you do? Magnus was really defeated by you? Where did you come from, monster? Stop. Listening to Charlotte's barrage of questions, Wu Yin quickly raised his hand to stop her. Why do you have so many questions? How can there be nothing wrong with me? Charlotte leaned forward, almost touching Wu Yin's face. You defeated Magnus with only 2 automatons when he used all of his automatons. Even though only Natsuki and Astria made a move, that's still the majority of our forces. Wu Yin grabbed Charlotte's shoulder and pushed her away. Ikaros' magic focuses on defense, while Cannon's magic focuses on healing. I've only hidden Nagisa's combat strength. The rest of our combat strength has been deployed. Charlotte immediately fell silent. Chapter 1580. You. Charlotte's sapphire blue eyes looked at Wu Yin with a complicated expression. Reading the latest novel, you expose the information of the magic that can be used by the magic circuit of your automaton to me just like that? Aren't you afraid that I'll formulate a strategy to counter this? Devise a strategy to counter the magic that my automaton can perform. Wu Yin didn't know what she was talking about. Why would I need to counter the magic that my automaton can perform? Isn't that obvious? Charlotte said matter-of-factly. Even though I didn't see your full strength and Magnus didn't use his full strength just now, you still managed to suppress the #1 student in the academy. It shouldn't be difficult for you to qualify for the night gathering, right? By then, we will be enemies. Charlotte stared at Wu Yin. Isn't it dangerous for you to expose the intelligence of your automaton magic circuit to me? Indeed, exposing the magic circuit of an automaton before a battle is an extremely irrational behavior, because an automaton can only perform one magic circuit. Therefore, once the magic circuit of an automaton is exposed, the enemy will be able to counter this magic and come up with a strategy to counter it. It will be very disadvantageous in a battle. Of course, the premise is that there will be a battle. Wu Yin said while Charlotte was still in a daze. Who told you I'm going to the night gathering? You're not going to the night gathering? Charlotte cried out involuntarily. In the Walpurgis Wong-Li Machine Learning Academy, the Walpurgis Evening Party was held once every 4 years. It was a banquet where the best puppeteers could be selected. The puppeteer who won the night gathering and became the Demon King would be able to dissociate himself from the ethics of a magician. He would also be able to become a popular figure who would receive preferential treatment from all parties. The person who became the Demon King would be able to do whatever he wanted. He could obtain everything that others could only dream of. Wealth, fame, knowledge, power. There wasn't a single person who wasn't moved. Under such circumstances, a puppet user who had the ability to fight for the throne of the Demon King said that he didn't want to join the night gathering. The first thought that emerged in Charlotte's mind was disbelief. You don't want to join the night party? Charlotte stared at Wu Yin as if she wanted to see something from his expression. He sneered. You can get everything by becoming the Devil King. Are you trying to say that you're a saint who doesn't have any requirement for wealth, fame, knowledge, or power? No, Wu Yin answered directly. I also have a request. I also hope to obtain power that no one else can match. That's why I came to the Walpurgis King Tactical Academy. Then why did you say that you didn't want to attend the night party? Charlotte frowned. Become the Devil King. Won't you be able to obtain the power you want then? In this world, there were many powerful magic, forbidden arts, and secret arts that were passed down from ancient times. Some of these magic, forbidden arts, and secret arts had harsh conditions to use. Some were too bloody, some were too powerful, and could easily cause great harm. Thus, all of them were listed as forbidden arts that couldn't be studied and were sealed away. If a puppet user or even a magician broke the taboo and studied these forbidden arts, they would be hunted down by the Magician Association and sent to the execution stage in the end. Only those who obtained the title of Devil King could touch these taboo arts as they wished and study these unimaginable forbidden arts to obtain power that others coveted. Since Wu Yin came to the Walpurgis King Tactical Academy to obtain great power, it was impossible that he didn't want to become the Devil King and study forbidden arts, right? Wu Yin saw through Charlotte's inner thoughts. That's why he snorted in disdain. To be honest, I don't think the forbidden arts of this world can give a person great power. Huh? Charlotte was stunned. No matter how powerful the techniques you create are, a magician is still a magician. Wu Yin left Charlotte behind and continued walking forward. If they don't know how to strengthen themselves instead of strengthening their arts, they will never become a god that controls everything. God! Charlotte's delicate body trembled as a wave of emotions surged in her heart. Does this man want to become a god? As soon as this thought arose, it was immediately cut off by Charlotte. It wasn't that she thought it was wishful thinking, but she felt that if Wu Yan's goal was to become a god, it would be too frightening. Of course, Wu Yan didn't lie. Didn't he do the demigod path, mission, and work hard until now to become a peak demigod? After becoming a peak demigod, Wu Yan would be able to touch the barrier of the divine rank. He would become a god. Of course, the reason he isn't interested in the forbidden arts of this world is because Wu Yan has an innumerable amount of techniques from the 103,000 demon path tomes. No matter how powerful the forbidden arts were, they wouldn't be as powerful as the truly heaven-defying arts in the 103,000 books that gathered the world's knowledge of arts since ancient times. After all, among the techniques in the 103,000 Book of Demon, there was a technique that could truly kill a god. It's a pity that Wu Yan's current strength is far from enough to use it. Charlotte shook her head, and she chased after Wu Yan while yelling at him. You said that you won't join the night party. Then, do you dare to tell me all the magic circuits of your automaton? If you want to know, I don't mind telling you. Wu Yan shrugged without batting an eyelid. Natsuki's magic circuit is space manipulation, which allows her to freely manipulate space. Ikaros's magic circuit is wave barrier. Astria's magic circuit is particle sword. It's the same as the lightsaber just now. She can use light particles to form a sword. She can enlarge or shrink it at will. Nagisa's magic circuit is freezing fog. She can control cold air and ice. Kanon's magic circuit is healing boost. No matter how severe the injury is, as long as the victim doesn't die, they will be healed in a short period of time. Wu Yan looked at Charlotte with a smile that didn't look like a smile on his face. Are you happy now? Why, you're really telling me? Charlotte was dumbfounded. Now, I can come up with a strategy to deal with you. If you join the night party, you will be at a disadvantage. I told you I don't want to join the night party. Wu Yan sighed. I came to this academy for another reason. It's not to join the night party. Don't worry. All right then. Charlotte let out a long sigh and calmed down the waves in her heart. That's fine too. I don't want to have another strong enemy. That's why you should think about how to deal with Magnus. Wu Yan pursed his lips. You won't be able to become the Demon King if you don't defeat him. Of course I know. Charlotte immediately became unhappy. I don't have a way to deal with his one-man army, but I will definitely win. No, we must win. Charlotte clenched her fists. Then, she seemed to have thought of something and started clapping. All right, why don't you practice with me? Huh? This time, it was Wu Yan's turn to be stunned. You're not joining the night party anyway, right? Charlotte's eyes lit up. Magnus has his one-man army, and your automaton isn't any weaker than him. Plus, your magic circuits work well together. If you practice with me, I might be able to find a way to defeat Magnus. What Charlotte said was right. Astria specializes in offense and can be used as a strong attacker. Ikaros's magic circuit is for defense. She can focus on defense. Natsuki can manipulate space as she pleases. She's perfect for ambushes and rescues. Nagisa's magic is for controlling air and ice. She can attack from a distance and control the battlefield. On the other hand, Kanon had excellent healing abilities. She could heal all kinds of injuries in a short period of time. Such a team that took care of all aspects was simply too ideal. It was even more like an army than Magnus' one-man force. If they could defeat such an ideal team, Charlotte might really be able to find a way to defeat Magnus. Time is of the essence. Charlotte grabbed Wu Yan's hand and rushed out. Let's go practice. Wait. Wu Yan didn't have time to say anything before Charlotte, who was transformed into a biker gang, pulled him into the air. His feet left the ground, and he rushed out with Charlotte dragging him along. Master! Ikaros stared blankly at the man and woman, leaving a trail of smoke behind them. Wait! Astria, Nagisa, and Kanon snapped out of their daze and chased after him. Only Natsuki and Sigmund remained where they were, speechless for a long time. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.